This is Rowena Dooley asking Star Citizens to report for duty. This is Rowena Dooley asking Sol Citizens to report for duty.
Hi, I'm Chris Roberts. Ever since I saw Star Wars as a wide-eyed 8-year-old, I dreamt of being a hotshot pilot saving the galaxy or a lovable rogue making my way across the cosmos. It inspired me to make Wing Commander and has influenced everything I've done since then. 10 years ago, after 20 years of making games, I was burned out, so I took a break, but I never stopped playing games nor loving them. And now, I'm ready to come back, and I'd like to show you something I've been working on. But I don't want to build any old game. I want to build a universe. I want to build a game I always wanted to build, but I didn't have the tools to do until now. One that you can fly off a carrier fighting a heroic war on the front lines, but also one that you can muster out and find your own fortune in the stars wherever your spaceship takes you. I want to be able to share this experience with my friends and fight against real opponents in space, not just AI. And I want this to be as good or better than any other game out there. And I want to actively push the boundaries of what you can do in a game. None of this would have been even possible 2 years ago. But with Moore's Law driving PC performance and cost and the gaming community embracing talented developers via crowdfunding, I believe it is possible today. I've never been accused of having a small vision. And so I thought it was best if I share my ambition with you visually. I'm pretty excited by how it's joined out. So why don't you come join me for a sneak peek? So I want to bring the space sim back. I want to bring the space sim back to the glory that it used to be in the 90s when I was making the Wing Commanders and when I was doing games like Privateer and Freelancer. But I want to utilize today's technology. I want to have the power of a cutting-edge PC with a GPU that can push millions of polys, connected to the broadband where you can play with thousands or hundreds of thousands or even millions of other people around the world. In a sort of shared immersive experience. And now I think with Star Citizen, I really can deliver that. We're going for something that's a little bit different than, say, a traditional MMO, and obviously different than just a single player game. What we're calling is a shared persistent experience. It is actually a combination of the single player experience and the multiplayer experience. Every player in the Star Citizen game is in the same universe. We don't have different shards or worlds, and you have a life, you have a character, you have multiple characters, they have multiple ships, so you have a bigger goal. You're basically going about making your name and fortune in the galaxy. So Squadron 42 is the single player experience in the Star Citizen game and world, and Star Citizen itself is the multiplayer persistent universe experience where you'll adventure around in a galaxy with hundreds, thousands, potentially millions of other players. They both kind of coexist in the same world. So Squadron 42 is a narrative single player story that will lead you into the open sandbox game that Star Citizen is. So the single player campaign in Squadron 42 unfolds very similar to the way Wing Commander did. So Wing Commander was set up in such a way that depending on how you performed the missions or how you interacted with your wingmen and pilots, it would determine sort of how the story evolved. So your actions sort of affected the narrative of the story. We're doing that in Squadron 42 to a level of fidelity and detail more than we ever did in Wing Commander. So definitely your actions will affect and evolve how the story goes, as well as how your relationships with your co-pilots are and other people aboard the carrier that you're based on. One of the things I'm most excited by on Squadron 42, and one of the things that we're sort of adding to the lexicon of the Wing Commander experience, is that we're enabling cooperative multiplayer in the single player experience. So as long as you're connected online, your friends, say in your friends list that are, you know in the community, you interact with on our website, they can drop in to your game if you want them to and play the roles of the wingman and the missions you're taking and help you achieve your goals and missions. But I just think it adds a whole new dynamic to the narrative in a game like Squadron 42. So I think it will be a really cool feature. If you like Wing Commander as a single player experience, Squadron 42 is like the next generation of that. The ambition and the scope of Star Citizen makes it pretty unique in the fact that I think we're starting with at least 100 star systems, and each star system can have multiple planets. Each planet can have multiple landing locations, and all of that sort of rendered and built in a completely sort of high fidelity first person viewpoint. So when we're down on the planet, we're running around in first person. We can go into the bar and we see other players or AI characters, and we can talk and converse with them and get missions. We can walk out of there, go to the ship dealer and buy a new ship. You can walk to the landing pad where your ship's sitting and get into it all in first person, sit down in the cockpit, take off, go out into space. So there's a level of sort of detail and fidelity that I don't think is currently out there in other space games, certainly right now. One of the great things about Star Citizen is there are a lot of different roles you can play in it. You can be a mercenary, you can be a bounty hunter, you can be a merchant trader, you can be a pirate. And we've designed and built a lot of different ships to sort of fill those roles in terms of, this ship's good for dogfighting, this ship's good for hauling cargo. Also, we have a lot of equipment that you can buy or you can find or you can acquire or you can upgrade in the game that will allow you to customize your ship for the roles you want to play. I think that's one of the most exciting parts of the game, is just that sort of free form and the amount of different things that you can do, and that's kind of what Star Citizen's about. And so I really felt I wanted to come back and make a game that pushed PC hardware in the way that Wing Commander used to do in the old days. Power of today's PCs are going to allow me to do a much more immersive experience than I could ever do back in the 90s when I was making Wing Commander. The level of detail and graphical fidelity will just allow more functionality, a lot more detail in terms of the ships, so we can simulate the systems and the physics in a way that we never could before because we just didn't have the processing power. So we're supporting Oculus Rift, which is this great VR headset. That's the sort of stuff that you just don't see happen frequently sort of in the console world. PC is in my DNA. I think it's the most interesting platform because it's always evolving, it's always challenging you, and it's going to allow us in 3 or 4 or 5 years time to do totally different things with Star Citizen, because the hardware will move along and we can push it even further. If you love space sims, you love PCs, and you feel like
this kind of game needs to happen more often. By backing now, you're helping it happen. But more importantly to that, if you've ever wondered how games are made, what's happening, by doing it now, you're going to participate in that. You're going to see it. We have multiple updates, on our dedicated site, the robertspaceindustries.com site, where we're describing what we're doing this week, how we built this ship, how we built this character, what our thinking is on this game mechanic or that game mechanic. So it's a real sort of insiders, behind the scenes view of the game development process. On top of that, beyond all this stuff I've talked about, we're going to be releasing parts of the game, modules of the game along the way. We're going to release the hangar module that is in August of 2013, and that module will allow you to walk around the ships that you've backed or pledged on the site, in the engine, see what they are, get inside them, check them out. Ultimately, we're going to enable multiplayer where other players can come in and check out your hangar. You can customize your hangar. This is where you'll be able to customize your ships eventually. And then in December, we're going to have the dogfighting module, which will be just standalone dogfighting in space. You can take the ships you have in your hangar and fight against other players, sort of more traditional deathmatch, matchmaking, or against AI, and you can practice and hone your dogfighting skills and give us valuable feedback in the balancing of the ships and the weapons. We can see how many players in one area is fun. So if you want to be playing parts of the game, seeing how the game is developed, having your voice heard and having your feedback, then you should join now rather than wait.
And greetings. Welcome to the Soul Citizens. I am GriffinGamingRPG, and we are back. It's July 23rd, and I forgot about Chris Roberts in his hands. But I saw that again. I'm like, oh my God, I remember he used to do that through his videos all the time. But I'm GriffinGamingRPG. We lost Gomab. Oh no.
He's still here.
Is he still here?
Still here.
He had to drop out his.
Oh, okay, but he shut off his camera.
No, his camera's on.
Is he?
Yeah.
Did you log in and log back out or something?
Yeah, my Firefox.
Okay, I got to put you back in then. Okay, no problem.
What had happened was.
Okay. What had happened was. Okay. Well,
I
listen.
don't know about these computer things, man.
I
just
know
use them.
this technology. Well, welcome back to the Soul Citizens. I'm GriffinGamingRPG, and we have a full house today. With Soul Citizens, and also a special guest who's a very familiar guest of ours who's been here several times. And thank you guys for the subs. Oh my God, thank you all. I can't even see who's doing all that.
I'm glad that you're finally recognizing that Fastcart is a very special guest, because he's
no. He's just very special. He's just very special. He's just very special. You just leave the guest part off.
Yeah, I'm very special. I mean, my mom told me that I was special. Like, put me on the short bus to go to school. When I was a kid, but
Yeah. Well, anyway, Fastcart, would you do me a favor and introduce everybody, because I'm going to get GomAB into the show. I need to get that done. Okay.
Okay, so let's start out with our special guest, our real special guest, on continuing the collaboration that we started yesterday on the capping table. I'm calling this part 2, the Electric Boogaloo. Welcome to TheAstroPub, Paul Shelley. How are you doing, Paul?
doing good. I'm doing good. I'm not. I'm a little tired, but I'm not as tired as Griff is right now because of him staying up late trying to figure out how to work his ideas in for part 2, and I feel bad about that.
No, don't feel bad. Don't feel bad.
Cheers to the AstroPub.
Don't feel bad.
I haven't seen my homie in so many years.
And then I'm going to start with another oldie but goodie, Gio. Now it's Sub Gio. You got so many names, Gio. How are you doing, man?
Yeah, no, I'm always the same old Gio, but I'm pretty good, man.
Good. And then we have GomabATL. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. And as my first public service of the evening, I'm going to go ahead and do this for everybody. Thank me later.
I missed that yesterday. No, I didn't miss it yesterday. We'll see how that goes tonight. I got like, what, 400K points. I'll see if I can come back. And not finally, but well, I guess finally, but not least, Griffin, how are you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing well. I already introduced myself. I have to introduce you. We have Fastcart here today. Thank you.
Also known as FC, yes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Listen,
the committed genius that hasn't been recognized yet.
Committed is a good word. I agree. We started out the show today with usually sometimes we do intros, guys, but we did a pretty long intro today, but there was a reason for it. The title of our show this week is called Visions, Dreams, and Reality. And, you know, sometimes it's easy to forget that there are a lot of people who've come into the Star Citizen community who maybe never really heard the original vision of Chris Roberts. Maybe they heard parts of it, pieces of it. They may have even heard a bad version of it. So this week we decided to kind of show it so you guys could hear what a lot of the early backers heard. Yeah, and what I want to do is go through each one of the people here, because most of these guys who are here have been in the game for quite a while. And I do want to ask the question. And Paul, I'm going to start with you. You're our guest. And I want to ask you, when you first saw that trailer there, which was he had a couple of them, but that one in particular, he goes into some detail. Well, how did you feel as a gamer, you know, coming into this whole thing of Star Citizen? Was when you first heard about it, you saw that video?
I think you got to put it in some perspective. Like, for instance, I didn't actually jump into Star Citizen until after the Hangar module had come out. So I watched that video after the fact.
That's fine.
But to put everything into perspective, there really was the very beginnings of the indie revolution that was happening for first PC games was just starting around that time.
Yeah.
A bunch of games had been starting to get a lot of recognition in the late 2000s, and in the early 2010s were really like this beginning of these new independent games from smaller developers being able to push out games that are pretty big. It was around the same time as the BR revolution started coming out. So Chris Roberts coming up and saying my death has been greatly exaggerated and talking about what he wanted to do was like nothing was happening at that time. Like nothing like it existed.
Yeah.
Today we're spoiled for choice in terms of a lot of these ideas, but it felt ambitious. It felt like someone was finally going, yes, someone's finally standing up for PC gaming, because all of the ambitious gaming from consoles were just ports, and they were often bad ports. They just didn't care because they didn't make it as much money. So
I remember when I watched that, and even when I watched it now, I remember the thing that stood out to me was when I saw all this footage is in the game engine. I remember that sticking in my head for some reason, and I remember questioning, was this a cinematic? You know, and I know, guys, when we watch that video now, it looks so old and dated to a certain degree. But back then, we thought it was the shiznit, right? I mean, we thought this was like, oh my God, this thing looks amazing. Gomab, let me go to you. When you first saw or first heard the pitch of what Star Citizen would be, whether it was that video or just in general, you got the idea of the vision that Chris had. What drew you in? Were you skeptical, excited?
I'm like Paul. I came in right around the time where the Hangar module was there. So when I did see it, that was one of the videos that a buddy of mine sent to me to kind of explain to me what the project was all about. And the first thing that came to my mind was, oh man, this is ambitious, right? You know, and you know, that was around the time we were, you know, years and years into waiting on things like Half-Life 3 and Forever, and you know what I'm saying? Like, so I was like, all right, here's another game that I really want to play that's never going to come out. Hey, if I get to play it while it's in development, sure, I'll give it a whirl, right? This would be fun. This would be cool. And then, you know, at first the Hangar module came out, and I was able to spawn a ship and walk around and hit buttons, and it did nothing. And I was like, this would be cool. I'll hang around. And then, you know, Arena Commander, and then PU, and then thousands of dollars later.
The story goes on. I'm going to ask a favor. Your audio is failing. It is starting to distort out and become almost indistinguishable. So I don't know if you may want to do a quick check while we're in between things here. Okay. If you got to restart, that's cool. Well, you know, I'll buy you the time. Gio, how about you? First time you see the Chris Roberts video, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm like Paul. I kind of seen it afterwards. After the fact, I did some research. I'd never played a Chris Roberts game, never knew nothing about him. So when I came into this, really, I want to see what all the hype was, because every time I would look at a game I was interested in, people would be like, hey, this game ain't got shit on Star Citizen, blah, blah, blah. So I got tired of seeing that, so I went to go look for myself. And then when I saw this game and this pitch, I'm like, oh, now I see what the hype is. Because at first, what Star Citizen is now, is what I thought of what No Man's Sky was going to be. We all know how that turned out. So I'm glad I did find this because it actually scratching that itch I actually wanted. And this was the game that finally moved me over to PC because I was a console peasant for a long time. And at that time, like you said, it was looking for new ideals and stuff was real dry. Daisy, I was looking at the time. I'm like, okay, this game will make me switch. And then Star Citizen came out. And I'm like, oh, this just looks amazing. I didn't even have a PC at the time. I had to back this game. I researched it for a long time, for a couple months. I was probably around the tail end of Wingman Hangar when I came in looking at the game, getting information, and switched to Around the Verse. And I was just intrigued with what Chris was trying to do. I never tried to play his game. I just loved the way he talked about his game, what he was trying to do, shit on the publishers, the trash, EA, Ubisoft. And I was full on in, and I think he's a visionary. You look now with NFTs and stuff, everyone loves JPEGs. We were getting shit on for JPEGs for how long? Now they're a thing. I think, Chris is just 10 steps ahead of the game, if you ask me. Real boss dude. So I had to support it, even if I didn't have a PC. I bought ships first because it sounds so awesome.
And that's interesting because you're one of the few people. Wow, somebody's giving us a raid. Who is that giving us a raid? Angry PC Tech, thank you so much. Thank you for that raid. I hope you had a great stream. You guys can give us a shout out for Angry PC Tech, and thank you those of you who are watching or following Angry PC Tech. Welcome to Soul Citizens, talking about Star Citizen and talking about the vision, dreams, and reality of Star Citizen, the game. So that's going to be our topic tonight. We've got some great guests. Paul Shelley's here joining the team. FC, but let me give a shout out to Royce Darby. Thank you for the sub also. And also to Meta Hatter. Thank you for the 5 community subs. We appreciate you giving those out. And Thrakazog, as always, thank you for both your subs too.
Thank you.
FC, for you, going back, hearing Chris Roberts' vision, whether it was this video or when you finally started hearing what this whole thing was about, were you skeptical? Were you like, ooh, this is great? Where did you stand?
I was a similar way to Geo. I was a big LucasArts game person. I never played the Wing Commander. So I heard about the Kickstarter in 2012, but I didn't back until 2014 because I was like, maybe I'll play it when it came out. But I just want to say we watched that video and you had me thinking when that video came out. The GTX 480 was the epitome of graphic back then. Yeah. That was that's what, eight generations ago now. Yeah, well, there were things
he said that was very interesting in that video in relation to that, because he talked about as the tech grew, so would also the game. I don't know if you heard him say that, and that's pretty interesting because there's always been this discussion about can Star Citizen keep up with all the new things that come out each year? And obviously they are trying to do that. Yeah, but think about what that means too in relation to development, right? That you can't rest on what you've done. You got at the same time keep it competitive, both in its play, its visuals and everything, which I don't think maybe sometimes we're not thinking about when we think about what is the team doing,
And I don't think EVE Online had that upgrade until like 8 years.
It took a while.
After the launch, before they upgraded their stuff. But, back then I was looking for my next Mass Effect. And I was hoping that Star Citizen would be my next Mass Effect. And, it's not quite Mass Effect, but, it has the same breadth when it comes to storytelling.
Yeah, okay. Well, listen, thank you guys. What I want to talk about now is some things, and we're going to kind of share some information with you guys. We're going to try and go back on the clock a little bit and some things that you guys may know about and maybe some things you don't know about. Here's the quiz for the panel, except for Paul, and except for fastcart.
Okay.
Who was the co-founder of Star Citizen and Squadron 42 and CIG Cloud Imperium? Let's see if anybody knows. Gomab? Geo?
Easy mode.
Yeah, it's on the sheet. It's on the sheet.
I didn't even check the sheet.
Okay.
Gamers don't read. Star Citizen gamers don't read. That's how I've been telling you.
Okay. Here's the deal.
I want to say Sandy, but
but you're close. You're not too far off.
Someone said it in chat.
Yeah, Ortwin
his
is.
brother.
Yeah, Ortwin.
Yeah, Alex said it.
See, it was in there somewhere.
Yeah, there we go.
Do I sound better now, guys? I'm using another mic.
It is better now.
You do.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Ortwin. Ortwin Thaermuth, who's a very well-known Hollywood lawyer, also a producer. He worked with Chris back when Chris had his film production company. He's also done other stuff in gaming and otherwise too. But he's more of a silent partner that a lot of people we don't really ever see him very often. In the early days, he would pop up every once in a while. And if you're curious as to who Ortwin is, well, guess what? We actually have a video. I got to put you back in here for channel 2 here, because I know you are not here. Let me get you in here.
I will add a little bit of something to it.
Sure, feel free.
His image is in Star Citizen.
I know.
Yes.
The base, his face is the basis for the face of the last Imperator.
Yep.
For the UEE. Yep. So,
which is pretty cool.
Before the recent one. So yeah.
Which is pretty cool. Let me get him in here. Bear with us for a couple more seconds, gang. Had a little camera issue earlier.
I just want to say I got Ortwin's autograph in 2016 at CitizenCon.
Oh wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, listen, if you guys,
I think I'm one of the few.
What you probably
want
are.
To remind everybody that fastcart is on a joke ban. So, fastcart, you are on a joke ban.
He's on a joke ban.
That's not a joke. I did not make a joke.
I know. But when you opened your mouth, we were thinking it was going to be one.
He's making an announcement. He's making a public announcement, public service announcement. Okay, so let's take a quick look at this video of Ortwin. If you guys have never seen him before, this is a video that was put out by CIG.
Ortwin Fryamut, co-founder, vice chairman, and general counsel. I founded the company with Chris. Everything. Flying it, Squadron 42, going to court there. Smoked salmon with caviar.
You say going to court there?
Did you hear what he said? He likes to eat?
Probably would have to be the Rolling Stones. That's bullet. Star Citizen. I play the guitar, I work out, and I play lousy golf. There are so many of them, I'll have to test fly them. I test drive my cars too. Thanks for coming on board. Thanks for supporting us. We're having the ride of our lives, and it's fun every day. Thanks, and we're looking forward for you to have a lot of fun in the game as well.
Okay, so that was Ortwin Theamuth. If you're not, once again, if you're not familiar with him, he has been with CIG from the very beginning. Some of us remember his name popping back up. Was it Paul back in 2017, 2018 when the CryEngine stuff kind of kicked back up? That was probably the most that we heard his name come back up again. But he is part of the visionary team of who began Star Citizen. Now, the team at Star Citizen was a very small group, but there were some core individuals that were part of that. Paul, let me go to you on that. Let's talk about who are some of those core people that folks may remember names, or maybe they've never heard before, that were that kickoff group with the company.
Well, obviously you've got Eric Peterson was another big one. You've got
Sandy. Sandy was there.
There's Sandy, yeah, Sandy, and obviously Ben Lesnick. And the current narrative lead, who's still there. Why am I blanking on his name? Dave Haddock. Yeah, so they were all there. I think that's pretty much it. There's a couple of other new ones. I forgot the name of the guy with the golden shirt.
The shiny gold shirt from the last Starship thing.
Colorado was on back then?
No, I can't think of the guy's name, dog.
He ended up leaving too, I think.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. But
there is one person who's in the LA office who is currently like one of the big wigs in LA. Okay. LA who was around the very beginning, who's still here. He's like one of the few ones. Okay. I can't remember his name off the top of my head though. But yeah, those are probably the big ones. Sandy, Ben, and Wingman, Eric Peterson,
and Dave. Yep, these are the core folks, guys, that were part of this whole vision, and also understand that there was a relationship with all of them prior to Cloud Imperium Games. They all knew each other. Most of you guys know that Chris, when he made Wing Commander, he stepped away from gaming for a while and went into film production, and he made many relationships while he was there. Hence why he also knew Ortwin, and also from when he was at Origin. And then a lot of the people who came on board later on, who became artists and concept people and everything else, were people from the motion picture industry, and it's because he had been in that industry for a period of time. Were you going to say FC?
I think Sean Tracy, Todd Pappy, Tony Z.
Tony Z came in later. He wasn't there day one.
Okay.
Yeah, he wasn't there day one.
I want to say Toast. He's been with them forever too, but I'm not sure.
I don't know I don't think Toast was an original person either. I'm talking about
Toast
literally
was,
when they were in a garage. I'm talking about like at the very, very beginning.
Toast was a fan who got a job working as a legal assistant.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
So,
mentioned Sandy.
Mark Skelton. There we go, Mad Style. Thank you, Mark Skelton with the gold shirt. Paul. Okay, so we want to kind of give you guys just a little bit of the beginnings here of what took place. Now, a lot of you guys know that this whole thing, this vision, also kicked off with the Kickstarter. And we know that CIG initially was asking for $2 million to get the project off the ground. But there was also some stretch goals. There were actually two sets of stretch goals. There was the Kickstarter stretch goals, and then there were some other stretch goals, which we'll talk about a little bit later. I'm not going to get to show those off. But let me show you what that looked like. Let's see. Who remembers this? Anybody on the team remember this? Who's here? Any of you guys remember this?
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
You remember that?
Yep.
Yeah. So this was basically what they were working. Well, they weren't working toward. They were working toward 2 million. But CIG, within the time frame that they did their Kickstarter, started making $2 million. Was it 6 or 8 million that they made? Do you guys remember? It was 6 or 8 million. It was more than what they expected.
And that's why when they kept adding more.
I think it was 8. I think
It was 8. It was
million.
8, right? Okay. So they actually made $8 million, which definitely caught them by surprise. Chris even says in quite several interviews that though they did expect some enthusiasm, they didn't expect that level of enthusiasm from the backers. But these were the different tiers that they had. Now, I know we can't read all of that, but there were basically these different tiers and different things that they would do in relation to the development as the money began to come in. This was all a part of the vision, all from the very beginning. And quite often, there are some things here that have been completed. There are still some things to come. They haven't been done yet, which is interesting. We were joking around yesterday. I think Unique was asking about what was Unique hollering about? He was saying, where is my, I can't even remember what it was, but there's something that, it wasn't his pet, but there was something that was on that list of tier things that you're supposed to get that has not been produced yet in the game.
Like 42?
No. It was some type of virtual item, some in-game item, something. I can't remember what it was now, but anyway, he was joking around yesterday saying that he was still waiting for this particular item. His repair drone. No, it wasn't his repair drone, the Archinator. It was something.
It that crossboww?
No, it was repair drone. That was it.
Is that what he said he wanted?
That was it. I think that's what
The repair drone. Okay.
Or maybe the mining drone. I'm not sure. I think
the mining drone. It was the mining drone. It was the mining drone.
It
was the mining drone. There we go.
I remember they partnered with Shroud the Avatar, and they had like a cross promotion going on.
Yeah, that was what Richard Garriott.
In their game, and then you get item in Shroud the Avatar, and I backed that garbage Shroud the Avatar just for the crossbow.
You're not the only one. I'm waiting on my crossbow too. Yeah, you're not the only one. I'm waiting on at least we know they work on the crossbow, so at least we do know that.
Yeah.
But we wanted to give you guys a little bit of the vision area because we're going to spend a lot of time in the reality area. Dreams, we're going to add a few more things here and talk about that. So let's go ahead and move into that next, in fact. When it came to dreams, I want to talk to the guys about this. And I say that the AKA the golden ticket. And what I mean by that is that the golden ticket is the thing that's supposed to, it's the ultimate thing that you get, right? And a lot of people have looked at Star Citizen as being like this ultimate game that they want to play, the game that they've always wanted to play. Same thing Chris Roberts said, the game I've always wanted to make. Let me ask you guys, I'm going to start with you, Gomab. As I mentioned to you guys, the dreams aspect is not about Chris Roberts. The vision side is Chris Roberts and CIG. But the dream side is the player base, right? And I want to ask Gomab, when you hear this statement, when I get my, I'm gonna, in your own way and in your nice way, can you give your feelings? Because players quite often say this, and I understand where it comes from, but give me some thoughts about this in relation to the dream, for backers.
Oh, I mean, he said in a nice way. That's going to be a struggle. I'm just gonna be.
That's why you said it.
Okay, well, you can say it in a diplomatic way. How's that? In a diplomatic way.
So when I hear that statement, I hear when I get my, Idris, or when I get my Polaris, I'm going to load it up with AI crew members and solo the universe, and I should be.
Don't forget Blades.
Yeah. And Blades and all that stuff, and I should be able to solo every aspect of the Star Citizen universe.
So what's wrong? What's wrong with that? What's wrong with me wanting to do that?
What's the nicest way of saying someone is idiotically delusional?
Can I do the nice thing? I can explain the nice way of saying it.
Yeah, go ahead. Because I'm struggling with that one.
This is a massively multiplayer online game.
Yeah.
This is not a single player game. So if you have a massively multiplayer online game, you're supposed to be playing with, and come close, a little closer, other people.
Oh no, really?
Game.
All right. But
I'm going to push back a little bit. Because Chris, they've said that it's not technically an MMO.
Oh yeah, but that's because
they have said it's a hybrid,
and the way he
they've said it's a hybrid.
Yeah,
MMO
that's because
go ahead.
That's because MMO stands for, when you say MMO, people think, wow,
right?
World
exactly.
of Warcraft.
Right.
And I think MMORPG.
But it's more than that. It's more than an MMO. Yes,
it is. But at its core, it is a it's an online multiplayer game.
MMO SRPG.
Yeah, it's not designed as a single player game. It's designed around people, and at its core, every time CIG developers have opened their mouths, they talk about larger ships are designed for multiple people to run.
I'm going to throw out the counterpoint to that. But I've spent $40,000.
I was just about to say that, Paul, but I'm gonna look at it.
So I should be able to do what I want to do when I play this game. And CIG is just lying to me about everything.
It's no one can fix stupid. You can stupid people can have money too. like you can be illiterate and have money apparently, because it's not like this hasn't been a hidden fact. This is a fact that has been around since the beginning of the campaign.
Or your parents don't like you very much, so they just hand you the credit card and lock you in the room.
I want you guys to know.
Just last month, we see what people with too much money do.
I invited these guys on the show so that they would give you the Pepto-Bismol smooth version of understanding the development of Star Citizen. But obviously, they want to give you the Father John's full blast medicine.
Listen, spare the rod, spoil the child of this kind of situation. All right, this sometimes you need some tough love, and when it comes down to this, I will say that the counterpoint of that is, of course, CIG doesn't want to lock players into that they can only play with other people. They want to have the ability to play with like solo, but there's also a certain point where it's like, what are you doing? Connie solo, maybe some NPCs here or there, but you're getting to you start getting these huge ones. It's like, you're never going to talk to another person. You're like, what are you going to complain about when, you get absolutely destroyed by another crew that actually has people, kind of thing. So
don't get me wrong. I plan on at least 75% of my gameplay being by my damn self. Right. But I'm going to be in ships that were meant for that, doing jobs and missions and activities in the game that were meant to be done by individuals. The challenge is when there are people that feel like they should have access to the entire plethora of activities in the game as a solo player, and that's just delusional.
Yeah. And this is one of the reasons why we're going back to this, guys, about visions and dreams. The tough part about the visions, and we're going to talk about this at the end of the show again in relation to CitizenCon, even though CIG has talked about transparency and making the backers aware of what they're doing and where they're going, the reality is that there's only so much of that we get. Now, a lot of times the community says, well, we want to know everything, or we want to know more. I told Paul this the other day. I think that if we know 50 to 60% of it, that's about the most I would think that maybe we know. There's a lot of stuff that they don't share, partially because they're a business. And as much as we may want to know things from a business standpoint, in the sense of competition and a lot of other things, there's some things they need to keep behind the closet. The second thing is that sometimes there's been bad, I don't say that behavior is not the word I want to use, but there's giving us a lot of information has been both a blessing and a curse for CIG. If they give us too much information, we take that information when it's being developed, and if it doesn't come into fruition, we beat them over the head with it. And if they don't give us enough information, then we say, well, we're backers, we should be getting more information. And so they've had to find.
To that point, the roadmap is a good example. But go ahead.
Yeah, the roadmap is one of those examples. And so they've had to try to find what is the happy medium that allows them to say, yes, we are being transparent and passing on information to the community and the backers, and we respect that. But at the same time, from business standpoint reasons, there's a certain amount of information that they keep to themselves, and not just because of the fact that they catch heat, but again, from a business standpoint. So I want to kind of talk about that. And let me go to Paul, because I know Gomab kind of expressed his thoughts about it, but that whole idea about when I get my, I'm gonna, there's concerns I have too, that maybe there are people who think that, like one of the things we say on this show to people all the time is when you get, like when people say they want to buy a ship, right? They're going to support the game, they're going to buy a ship. We try to tell people, do your homework, do your research, don't buy it, fly with someone else, talk to some people who have it so that you'll know what that ship is ultimately going to be. Because I know people, like, for example, I know one guy, he came into the game very, very excited. He heard about the things you could do, mining and salvage and this, that, and the other. So this is what he did. He went out and bought an exploration pack, mega exploration pack, with the intent of using his Carrick to mine. Okay.
I'm laughing at Paul's reaction.
And then after he bought it and found out that he couldn't use the Carrick to mine, he got upset. He was angry because he looked at how much money he had spent. And so my thing is that this idea of when I get my this, I'm gonna, Paul, can you talk a little bit about that? Because why it's important for people to, it's great for us to dream, gamers dream, nothing wrong with that. We're not trying to stifle dreams, but we're also trying to say, your reality is going to be in another world if you're not careful with the development of a game like Star Citizen. Go ahead, Paul. What were you going to say?
I'll say that the sandworm is a big example, and this is a in defense of those dreamers, because Chris Roberts and CIG do often lean into it. I mean, what was the big? Wasn't there a big trailer that they did that was all about like dreams? That was fan made trailer. The Imagine trailer. The Imagine trailer.
Two of them.
Yeah. It was the player one, and then there was the one that was made by the players using CIG's assets for CIG. And for those who don't know, in 2016 there was a was it 2016 or 2015? I can't remember.
Hold on. Before you get there, you want to go into that now?
Well, I was just going to say the sandworm.
Okay. I got video footage to go with you. That's why I'm asking.
Okay.
If you're going to go there, let me show the footage. Okay.
Okay. Go for
All right. Because there may be some people who didn't see it, but we're going to show you the parts of the presentation. This was, as Paul said, CitizenCon 2016. And we're going to show you the parts that really got people pumped up. And we titled this section Tusken Raiders, Sandworms, and Sandstorms. So check this out.
I think we were all there too, except for Gomab.
Yeah, we were.
Yeah.
We were.
Saw it live. Yep.
Do you want me to kind of talk over this, or just do you want to?
You can. Feel free.
So this is an example of what CIG used to do for CitizenCon. They used to do these big pre-created, scripted, almost cinematic vertical slices. Like this was before they had working vehicles. They still had the use system in place. Like this is all done like it's a script. It's in engine, but it's in engine scripted. And the idea of this was to show off the new ground tech that they had been making.
It's going to change now. Going to the Sandstorm now.
Yeah. So when this happened, they were talking about dynamic weather patterns, and they were trying to create all these dynamic weather. So they showed this off and be like, we're working on this so you can have like random dynamic sandstorms come through and kind of cover everything. And, you have to take shelter, and, this is all in engine. So this is all stuff we've made. It's all the effects we've made, and you got to get inside. So like this whole presentation was done and said as if this was something they were working as a prototype in game for everyone. You see like the things flying off there. This whole thing was set up as a imagined situation. This was the future. And the way this was presented, at CitizenCon was as if, this is going to be coming soon, right? They never said this was years away. They said, like, hey, this is what we're going to show you. But they never explicitly said it was going to be coming, but they never explicitly said it wasn't going to be coming soon. This is just our ideas. And the ending of this, like the ending of this, we see like the sandworm, moving around.
Fucking
this
Dune style.
Yeah. This is before the Dune movie, by the way. This right here, everyone lost their mind when this came out. They're like, this is real. They got sandworms in game. I can't tell you how many people today still look at this with super bitter moments. Like, this is probably one of the saltiest moments in gaming history.
Wow. In gaming
I will put up there because that was put up there and everyone lost their minds. They were like, that's really cool, to the point where other games were stealing this idea. We're putting this idea up there because, I mean, obviously Dune is Dune inspired, and Dune had been around.
Icarus, yeah.
But Icarus, right after this had been released, Icarus put the sandworm in the game, and their game, and even No Man's Sky teased sandworms and stuff like that. So,
oh god.
The problem is that this came out and everyone's like, I can't wait to do this, to go with a sandworm and everything like that. This was 2016, I think.
Yep. Yeah, it was.
Yep.
2016, yeah.
That was around the same time we had 3.0 release, so it was close to 3.0.
It was leading up to it. It was leading up to it. He gave us the big preview for what was going to be coming in 3.0. Yeah.
Yeah. And I could just tell you that's still not in the game. So many people will be like, when this comes out. So this is one of the situations where the dream of Star Citizen was being sold by CIG in a way that was kind of deceptive, because while they never officially said this is coming out soon, they never said it wasn't coming out soon. And this is looking at that weasel word stuff. And that's where like a lot of the dreams gets fed into, because people are thinking like all of this stuff is going to be in game. We're going to see sandstorms and dynamic weather systems and sandworms and Tusken Raiders and all these sorts of great. This is great.
Yeah. Let me go to something Mad Style saying, because we've talked about this on the show before. You're absolutely right, Mad Style. When this video starts out, when the video starts out, right at the very beginning, bottom left corner, it says Lear 3. Yeah. But we didn't get it. We didn't get it back then. I mean, we didn't understand it, for a lot of people. Paul may have.
I knew that Lear 3 was on the other side of it wasn't anywhere near Stanton. But the point wasn't that it was Lear 3. The point was this is the point where, people thought that server meshing was still just around the corner, that new systems were just around the corner, because CIG was still this is like a write off of the kind of super tight end. We're not going to tell you a lot of information because we got to get 3.0 out kind of situation.
And also the other thing that happened at this particular CitizenCon was, this is when many of us went to Los Angeles with the hope that we were going to see a vertical slice of Squadron 42. And there was kind of it wasn't a bait and switch, but they chose not to show it, but they ended up doing this instead. And in some ways this pacified us. But to Paul's point, we're going to talk about this at the end of the show, how there became a change with CitizenCons. The earlier years of CitizenCons really were about vision. That's what they really were about. It's like, this is what we would like to be able to do. But of course, we're hungry as gamers. You show us stuff like this is red meat. You know what I mean? We're like, when is this coming out? And if you say we're working on it, well, there's a caveat to that. That could mean 8 years from now, like Paul said. It doesn't mean it's coming out next year. But that's what we were feeling. We were like, oh my God.
Well, typically back then, that was the impression that many folks got, though. We were coming in like a year or two, but nope.
Gio, you were there. When you saw this, what did this do for you as far as coming from console? You didn't have a PC, but you're seeing all this stuff right in front of you.
Oh, dude, I was blown away with my mouth open. I'm just sitting there like, I had the VIP ticket. I'm like, dude, this is what I signed up for. I'm like, I was amazed. Now I knew, I'm one of those people, what they're doing, like from the moment I bought into this game, that's why I research, just don't buy stuff, research. So you know what you're getting yourself into. I knew this game was going to take a long time for what they were doing, because EA, Activisions, they're not even doing stuff like this. So like the tech that they were pushing was amazing. I looked at like some of their older demos, and this was one of the things I used to love about CIG. When they would show something, you can actually do it in game. Like you look at the space station when Port Olisar first came out. I forgot what demo that was.
2014, 2015, yeah.
Which one? That was in 2014, 2015?
Yeah, it was right before 2.0 came out. So, yeah.
So when they showed those stations, you can actually do that. I'm like, there's no way, because before I'm looking at some of the E3s and stuff. A lot of that stuff was smoke and mirrors, and what came out you never got. So what CIG was showing, they were actually showing that, and you can do it. Same thing with the Gamescom demo when you could, fly to I forgot what is that planet that they took away.
Oh, Levski, Delamar.
Yeah. When they showed that demo,
Levski.
I'm like, oh, this is beautiful. And not too long, that eventually came out. So they were actually showing stuff that you can actually do in game. This was like the first demo that came out, and it's been like outlandish long that this isn't coming in game. So I think after this one came out, they start reeling stuff back like, hey, this is way too far off to show us, which I actually like it. In my opinion, I like shit like this. Like, okay, this is what may be coming out in the next 5-6 years, perhaps. I love seeing stuff way in the future. I don't like the super current, like, oh, this is like a couple months away, or you can do this, that, and the third, or a year off. I like super far in the future, but this got me even more hooked when I saw it.
Gomab,
I'm the opposite on that.
I was about to say you weren't there, so I was going to ask you, what's your thoughts? Because we were there, so you give us your thoughts.
If you got 100% of the content, I want 85% of it. Tell me about what's dropping. What's in the hopper, what's coming out like within the next few quarters. Saying, what can I expect to see? I need something I need something hot and stanky dropping like right now. Like, hey, folks that ain't here right now, log in, you get this new feature. Congratulations, 3.2 is live. Yeah, go ahead. What I'm saying? And then tell me what's coming by the end, what they're working on. That, hey, we're rounding the finish line on this thing, and this other thing is about to be knocked out. I need to know, like, tell me what's happening now. Don't tell me what you're thinking about trying to do, maybe possibly soon.
Yeah, and that's go ahead. No, go ahead.
Because that's what it's like, just like Paul said, right? Yeah, they scripted this, they put this out here, the Tusken Raiders and the dynamic weather patterns and the sandworms and stuff. That was all really cool, and it really just sounded like Chris was like, these are the things I want, and somebody was like, yeah, I think I could do that, and then they went and tried to do it, and they're like, snap, we don't have the technology to do this though. Like, and we gotta invent it and make it, and we're nowhere close. We're literally, what was this, 2016?
2016.
Yeah.
2016.
Yeah. So we're literally 7 years away from this demo, and they're nowhere close to. I mean, they got dynamic clouds now.
Well, this is what they do. This is the deal. On a single client, they can run it, right? But the object is, like you said, to put it into the verse, and that's what they can't do, because they showed us. In fact, weirdly enough, they even showed us. I don't know if it was a calling all devs or whatever. After they did this in 2016, they actually showed the guy on the computer putting it together and showed it to us and everything. So it wasn't just like a cinematic animation. They had the technology to produce. Now, dynamic weather, Gomab, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, the storm thing was something that they could do. But again, like you said, we're nowhere near being able to put that into the platform that's on the larger scale for us, right? We just can't do dynamic weather.
So this game looks beautiful, right? It looks beautiful. But let's not kid ourselves, right? We're in 2023 looking at a beautiful 2018 level graphics that runs like crap unless you have the top level stuff. Agreed. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, there's a lot they can do, on a single client, right, and if you build it for that, this game, the way they've architected the back end on this game has never been for that. I've always said this game is almost like the guy that hits the gym every day but skips leg day all the time. So he's super swole up top, but his chicken legs right on the back end, and they can't handle anything. So that's why we're experiencing the challenges with server meshing and PES and all that stuff, because they got to go back and do squats.
Yeah, true.
In order to support all these features that they want to do.
You're 100% right. I'm just letting people know. I don't want people to think that this was just some animated cinematic and that was it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's all I'm saying. You're right. They don't have this. They don't have the system to support it, and that's what we really need for it to be able to do.
It was in engine, and but And I think this is like to bring to the point is that it's not just the backers' fault for letting their imaginations go wild.
Right.
CIG 100% leaned into the dream.
Yep.
And because
look at what they used: Tusken Raiders, right? Doom, the worms. I mean, all the things that would trigger any big science fiction fan.
Dude, the first thing I said, they interviewed me afterwards. I'm like, this gave me a Star Wars vibe. That was the first thing I said because of that. You got the Sandstorm, the Tusken Raiders, but
Tatooine.
We gotta give CIG a little credit. Like their demos before, this is like the first one they really faked. If you look back, I mean, you had the ArcCorp demo. I mean, when I saw that, I'm like, dude, is that gonna be real? It was real. The Port Olisar, like I said before that, the lag ski demo, all those you were able to do, and it came out what they showed. Now this was the one that came out and they like extremely added like a lot of fake in it, and it's really far out. But I mean, it was amazing. It's just like I hope they can really bring this true like they did their other demos. So I give CIG credit for that because that was the thing that always hooked me with them. And a lot of the other game companies won't do. Like Destiny's one of the games. Like they'll show you like, hey, you could see all that out there on an E3 demo. Look, all that out there you can explore. And when the game comes out, you go out of bounds and you die. You know, it was just a whole bunch of lies like that within the industry. And CIG wasn't doing that. They were like, hey, what you see is what you're going to be able to do. Now they kind of veered off from that. Now they kind of reeled it back in after this demo because they got so much shit after it. But I think CIG has a pretty good record with some of these demos, if you ask me.
Well, we're going to talk about the transition. Apology, jump in. We're going to talk about the transition because there was a transition that went from demos that were much more visionary about what Chris was showing us. This is what we want to do. And then we started moving more toward this is what we know we can do. And, you know, I agree. It's kind of like what Gomab was saying earlier. It's kind of like the roadmap, right? Some people that year-long roadmap, they have no problem with it. There are other people, they don't need to see a year-long roadmap. They just want to see their first 3 months because that year-long roadmap for them is not meaningful to them. They want to know what's coming out soon. Some other people are very curious and it doesn't bother them to see, you know, and if something gets pulled off in month 9 or month 6, doesn't faze them. Other people, they see something they're looking for it to be follow through for it to show up, right? So, I mean, not going to make everybody happy. Everybody has a different perspectives about when they're dreaming about this game. Who was there just came in? Vampire in the Sun, thank you so much for that follow. Shimpasa, thank you for the sub. Firehawk, thank you for the follow as well. And Paul, you were going to say something.
No, I mean, but the whole point with the whole thing was that like when we started seeing, this is the last kind of point where we started to see the game come together, because by this point 2.0 had been out for a bit, and 3.0 was about to get released.
Ooh, can you talk about that for a second, Paul? I don't mean to cut you off. Talk about what happened the year before, which also made us very hungry, because you got to remember this too, Gomab. To this point, we're in the point now where we get quarterly releases. The year before this, Paul, talk about what happened the year leading into 2016, which made us even hungrier.
The great drought.
So first off, I think it was it at CitizenCon that they released the Squadron 42 trailer, or was it after?
It was
after. Yeah.
It was sometime at the end of 2015. They announced that Squadron 42 was going to release in 2016, and on top of that, they announced Star Marine, which was just called the FPS module up to that point, and they finally were announcing Star Marine coming out, and so they released 2.6, and the last version of 2.6 they released was in January of 2016, which was, I believe, and my date may be wrong on this one because this is one I always gets kind of screwed up with. 2.6.3, and 2.6.3 was the last patch we got, and then we didn't have a patch until November of that year. Not a single update. Now we did get videos, and we often got 45-minute inside Star Citizens, where it was like an entire breath. But CIG's also gone on record and saying like that broke them. They couldn't do that every week.
Right.
Like there was too much time. They were spending more time doing interviews than they were making videos or making the games. They couldn't do that anymore.
It wasn't Inside Star Citizen back then, was it? It was
around the verse and reverse the verse. Around the verse and reverse the verse.
Well, that, and they also looked at the stats. They said people weren't watching the whole thing, so they thought it was a waste of time, which I'm like, numbers don't always tell the story, so I don't like how they did that.
And also there were a lot of actor interviews for Squadron 42, like Gary Oldman and other people.
That was the other
leading up.
thing. Yeah. Sandy had interviewed all the actors in Squadron 42. So like Paul said, there was a lot of stuff that subconsciously and consciously had us kind of hyped up for this particular CitizenCon.
Yeah. And I think 2016 was the year without a patch. And if I remember correctly, it could have been 2015. Chat can correct me if I'm wrong. But it was just around this time when like the bottom fell out of a lot of people's patience for CIG. Yep. So it's like this is kind of like that point, but it was around this point as well that 3.0 was starting to come out, and then things started picking up to the point where we are today.
Yeah.
It was and that I think that alone, just that experience changed how CIG talks with the community, because they went from being a company of like 15 people in a basement to being an actual company, and they realized they needed to change that. And that's when certainly we start to see the dream talk start to dwindle a little bit more. So
yeah, Chad is correcting us. It's 2017.
Are you sure? 17?
Yeah.
Are you all sure?
I thought it was 17. I thought it was 17. Yeah.
So this was right before the big drought. So yeah, like I said, I'm wrong. I'm wrong with those dates because I never remember those dates specifically. I know the
been so long.
So we got blue ball. Then they put us on the drought.
So yeah. So
can I just say I think I'm in between Gomab and Geo with this, because I don't really care if it's all stuff that's really coming out really soon or stuff that's coming out really far. But I mean, like, I'm okay with the current roadmap being a quarter ahead instead of a whole year ahead. But maybe I'm in the minority. But back to the original point of this particular segment, I just want to say when I first got my Endeavor, when I first got my BMM, I was one of the people who said, "Oh, when I get my Endeavor, I'm going to modify components solo. When I get my BMM, I'm going to fly and sell stuff solo. I'm going to hide a whole bunch of AI blades and NPC." I was one of those people back then. When I first got
one of them, huh?
and I don't mind owning up to that.
I'm a solo my Idris.
Yeah. And I mean, and I you know what?
On that ways to die video.
And I can understand where some of that comes from, fastcart, because we also came out of Eve, where we did have these big ships that we took out and did all this stuff with, you know. But we also had to start
back then. They were talking about blades back then, so I was thinking, maybe I don't need a crew at all, because I just to stick a blade and do everything I want. So that was my misunderstanding there.
And in defense of those people, like there really weren't a lot of games that were multi-crew game simulators. They didn't exist. Yeah. There was two. Like at that time, it was Artemis Bridge Simulator, and eventually
Star Trek. No, that wasn't out back then.
That was after.
That was after
Star Trek.
Yeah, Artemis was
another one.
Was the generic version of that.
Then there's like there's one that's still around here. It's like Pulsar. Pulsar was the one that was like it was in like early access at that point. And now we have a bunch of them, you know, Sea of Thieves and a bunch of other stuff like that. But that sort of genre didn't exist of multi-crew ship, you know, piloting didn't really exist until recently.
True.
So
true. Okay, well, we have probably angered some people, maybe, I don't know, but I figure we'll change the gears a little bit and let's talk about another dream that existed among Star Citizen backers, and that was Sandy Gardner. Some of you guys know Sandy Gardner. She was over marketing for CIG, and Sandy used to come out to the CitizenCons and always open up the show every year. And when Sandy would come out, you know, we've seen her on ATV, on Round the Verse and stuff, and we've seen her on some other shows, but this was Sandy, right? And boy, oh boy, people were like, "Oh, that's Sandy Gardner. Oh my God, she's a woman. She's a gamer. She's beautiful. She's smart. She knows all about the game." And people got so pumped up. Remember this, guys, about Sandy Gardner? And then the news broke that Sandy Gardner was married. Let's talk about, there was some period during this dream period where this became an issue. And I don't know if you guys remember, if you guys were around long enough to remember this, but there were people who tried to make a really big deal out of this. The fact that they were married.
Yeah, I remember one person in particular.
Well, I'm not even going there. I'm not even going there. I'm just speaking about even within the community. There were people who felt there were points of deception. And the reality of it is that Sandy Gardner, some of you all know that Sandy Gardner's been an actress for many years. And like a lot of actresses, they will not go by a name or a last name tied to someone who happens to be a producer of a motion picture company They like to build their career on themselves. But it got translated into, oh, they were trying to be deceptive. They weren't trying to tell anybody they were married, blah, blah, blah. Like people in the company didn't know they were married, right? So
they had 2 kids by that point too.
Yeah,
it's like let's not pretend that like those 2 children are in. I think they were born by then. But,
they were born. Yeah, because remember there's a certain person who doxed. Remember that the doxing thing?
Right. Yeah.
From the not smart refugee.
Darn business about their personal life.
Exactly.
Like, that's one of my challenges with this community is the level of entitlement into like every aspect. I swear to you, CIG could put live video feeds into every hallway, office, conference room in CIG, and they would still feel like they need to understand your thoughts. They need to know the thoughts that they're having when they're walking by. It's not enough for them to see what's. Oh man, it's too much.
And also, can I point out I'm not sure what the word is, but Aaron Roberts is Chris Roberts' brother. No one, you didn't hear peep about that. It was all about Sandy and stuff like that.
That's not true. That's not true. It came up about Aaron too.
It wasn't to the degree. It wasn't to the same
degree.
Not
to the same degree.
Yeah, I didn't hear too much about that. Anything I heard it was a W because of how much experience he had on the Lego game.
Oh no, they got into a whole nepotism thing at one point. I mean, there was a whole bunch of stuff that came out during that period of time. We're gonna say, Paul.
What I will say is I understand why a lot of people got upset about it because CIG did go out of they did go out of their way to hide it. And now the reality is that there were some people who went way too hard. And I look at it this way: Gio and I have been in those videos. All right, we have our faces in those videos of those people trying to take down Sandy Gardner and Chris Roberts. They have used our videos and our likenesses in those videos because people reach out to me even today, be like, "Hey, do you know you're here?" or whatever.
Oh my goodness!
It gets brought up again because we've been doing stuff for a long time.
Wow!
Like. And I remember when it came out, both me and Gio were like, okay, like, why do we care? They're making the game. Is this okay? Is she doing good? Great. Yeah. Okay. I don't know why people are upset about it, but yeah, that was definitely it was a huge thing. And I think it culminated in a really weird hit piece pretty recently. Done by Forbes.
Oh god,
that was like 2018.
Yeah, Forbes. Yeah.
Oh gosh, 2020 screwed my perspective.
So, I can't believe it's 2020. I'm like, huh?
Yeah, Forbes. Yeah, that was another crazy one.
But all I can say is, like that was a thing, but at the same time, it was. I never understood a lot of it, but at the same time, I understood why people were confused because I was confused as to why they hit it. But when it came out, it was more like. Okay.
Yeah, right. It didn't change anything, right? And I kind of jokingly put this in to kind of say because maybe some of these jokers were out here dreaming about Sandy when they found out later they weren't very supportive. They got mad.
No.
I don't know, man. No. Listen, I used to hear a lot of cats talking about they wanted to go meet Sandy Gardner. That's all I can tell you.
I got a chance to talk to Sandy?
Yeah. So anyway, that's the name of that too. Yeah, I know. Okay.
I ain't got enough money like a nerd Chris Roberts got her. You gotta be a smart nerd with a lot of money to get a chick like that, my man.
All right. Let's talk about moving from the dream aspect to you know what? Before we do
that comment, brother.
Yeah, I know. He's so silly.
I'm stuck with the nerds. What you mean?
So right, we're going to do our station identification here. As you guys know, we've been raising money for St. Jude Children's Hospital for the Play Live fundraiser. We are looking to raise $10,000 by October 22nd, which is the weekend of CitizenCon, and you guys have already been helping us do that. Our goal is $10,000. We're already at $1,322 within just 1 month, and we know that you guys will continue to support us. So we're asking that if you take a look at the link that we've clicked in, we're going to play a little video for you, and then after that, we're going to talk about what happens with it.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital and YouTube are teaming up to help end childhood cancer.
In September, supporters from across the nation come together during Childhood Cancer Awareness Month to raise money for the kids of St. Jude.
And that's when YouTube gamers will be posting videos and live streaming to raise funds to support the life-saving mission of St. Jude.
At St. Jude, families never receive a bill for treatment, travel, housing, or food, because all a family should worry about is helping their child live.
Money raised also supports the research that leads to groundbreaking medical discoveries that St. Jude freely shares around the globe.
I can only imagine as a parent the relief that they feel when someone like St. Jude steps in.
I think it's a really good lesson for us to realize that we need to do more, and we can do more.
It is a huge step in the right direction, a huge step in helping just people and giving back.
It's all for good, and we have a responsibility, a social responsibility to help out.
Find your favorite video or live stream during St. Jude Play Live on YouTube for Childhood Cancer Awareness Month and donate to this amazing cause.
Your support will help St. Jude further its incredible mission.
Finding cures, saving children.
Let's end childhood cancer together.
Alrighty. And as I mentioned earlier, we do have some tiers of giving that we've been doing. We've already reached the $1,000 mark. We're on our way to the $2,000 mark. And as you guys can see from the tiers, we have a variety of giveaways that we're going to do. We have a great anonymous donor who has given us many of the things that you see on the screen to help us reach that goal. So we're hoping you guys will toss in. Every time we reach a goal, we will have a giveaway. And you'll be able to be possibly the winner of a wonderful, wonderful Star Citizen package of some form. If we get to $10,000, Paul, we're going to give away an Endeavor Master set, if you can believe that, if we get to $10,000. So, so that's what we're going to do.
Approve.
You approve?
As a lifelong member of the cult of the Endeavor, I approve. So
fair enough.
That's what I got behind me too. So yeah.
Fair enough. So yeah, if you guys can take a look at the link, we put it in the chat there for you. If you're interested, please, we like to give consideration to giving to St. Jude Children's Hospital, and that would be a very awesome thing.
And I'll give away an LTI sandworm as well.
An LTI sandworm, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All righty. Let's go ahead and hop into the next item. We're moving from dreams to reality. Now, this is where we're going to spend a little bit more time, guys. We're going to talk about what it takes to build the team. Now, as you guys know, there are multiple studios, and Paul, I need you help confirm with some of this. Multiple studios that CIG has had over the years. As you guys know, they just recently built a brand new studio in Manchester, but they've had studios and they still do Austin, Texas, Los Angeles, Frankfurt, Germany, Derby, UK, Manchester. And then, as you guys know, Turbulent just recently was brought into the fold of the parent company of CIG. So now they're Montreal, Toronto. And then, Paul, you had mentioned this on your show yesterday, but when I went to the Turbulent website, they did have Lions down in France.
Lyon?
Yep.
Yeah.
Lyon. I said Lion. God, my ignorance. Lyon.
They announced it fairly recently that they were opening up a studio there.
Oh, okay.
So, like, it was like within the last 2 or 3 months that they announced it. And it's kind of like the Montreal studio that they built in Montreal, because I believe Turbulent is like, there's 2 studios technically in Montreal, whatever. It's the game studio that they built.
Okay.
Which is in Montreal. Okay. And it's similar to that. Lyon is that same situation where it's about, I think if it's being built, it's only a couple of people right now, but it's eventually going to expand. So
okay. All right, well, we're going to show a quick video of just a couple of the studios, 2 of the studios. You guys can go on the website. CIG actually at one point used to go to all the studios and give you a tour of those studios. It's very interesting to see. But again, we're trying to match up this visions with the dreams and the reality. Once you see the workspaces that they work in. Paul, you've been to the Austin studios. I think I've been to the Austin studios. FC, you've been to the Austin studios?
Okay. I've been to LA and Austin.
You went to both of them. Okay. All right. Gio, did you go to Austin studio?
Both, sir. Yes.
You went to both? Okay. All right. Gomab, you been to any of the studios? Not yet?
I have not been to any of the studios yet.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, so let's take a quick look at the Austin studio. This goes back a little bit, guys, so understand this is not the most recent, but we just want you to see what there was in the early days. Okay, here we go.
So, the building was built in 1908. It's historic, downtown Austin. Coming up here, we'll take a look inside the building. All right, guys, come on in. It's our new office. Check it out. We move in this Saturday, actually. Today's Thursday.
Nice. Very nice.
Let me just take it all out. Yeah. It's cool. 1908 building, historic Austin. We're in the basement. So this is all. You have solid. I mean, this
I know,
is
this
like
is not
storm cellar quality.
I know. Well, I think it was a storm cellar.
Yeah, it was.
Welcome to Chris's large, humongous office, where you can almost touch here to here in not even 2 seconds. Here's going to be the arc pit. Take a look around there. We have the programming room here, where we put in the programmers in the cave, so they don't need light. Our art director, or chief visual officer, his name is, I can't tell you yet, but you'll find out soon. So here we are into the wingman's basement. Dark, dank, and where all the magic happens. Have our little coffee and tea area over here. Here's our conference room here. We'll come on in. So we got a little conference table that's going to go in here. We're going to put a screen on the wall over there and a projector. Hang a projector up here. Blast on the wall so we can see it. We'll also be showing you a lot of presentations from this room. This is sort of our presentation room. So you get a peek at our network guys. Say hi, Jeremy.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, what's up? And then here we're going to have the design pit. All along the wall here will be designers making Star Citizen. This is all about Squadron 42. It's all about Star Citizen, and it's all thanks to you. Appreciate it.
Okay, so Paul, do you know where that is, the historic district, where that was? Because that was the original place where they were. That's not where they are now. Uh-oh.
Yeah, I know generally where that is. It is downtown Austin. To give you, for anyone who hasn't been to downtown Austin, there's no parking. It's a nightmare. Trying to drive around there, and when he's talking about a basement, it's a basement. I haven't been to that building specifically, but I know those sort of size of buildings, and they're trying to make it sound kind of big, but it's like 5 rooms. It's not very big. So. Yeah, it's a tiny space that area was. So,
and I want folks, the reason why I want to show this is that we're talking about the vision and where they began with. CIG started out with, officially according to their numbers, was 13 employees when they started. This is within a year of the Kickstarter of 2012, and I think their number may have went up to 47 or something. I forget what the number is. I can look it up in a second. But my point is that you can see that they really started out in humble beginnings, very small space. I think a lot of people think, they had $8 million. They were probably spending all this money on this, that, and the other. We're going to talk about a real big controversy that came up with that and what the reality was behind that as well. Let's take a look at the LA office. And then this is going to kind of lead into the subject that we're going to be talking about. So let's look at that one. Oops, wrong one.
Howdy.
Hello.
How you doing?
Come in. Jared, how you
Good
doing?
to meet you. Good to meet you, Chris. This is my daughter, Cassidy.
Cassidy?
She's a fan too. Oh, she wants a
Fist
fist
bump.
bump.
Very nice to meet you. How you doing? So welcome to the Cloud Imperium offices. We literally just moved in this morning. In fact, some of this furniture was getting put in this morning.
Appreciate you letting
Do you
us
have
stop
the
by.
silver card
Yes,
we can
I
show?
do,
So we do.
actually.
Okay, okay. This is our Rear Admiral card. So nicely made in metal. They're all currently actually being mass produced, and mailed out as we speak. So, and then the idea of these cards is that when you've got your Citizens card, whether it's stopping by the office or coming to an event, we do it at PAX Prime or we do it over at Gamescom, it'll be sort of like your entrance. And so over here is our conference room.
Paul, I know you use that card all the time.
And this is actually where a fair amount of stuff's going to happen. We do a lot of video conferencing. It's when I'm talking with the team in Austin and I'm here, and we've got a nice big screen. Website up there, I think we're doing all right today. 8612, not bad. Great, so then after the conference room is sort of the break kitchen area. All the walls are kind of bare, but we'll put stuff on it. And actually, I think we're going to put another
Cyberwolf, you got me.
And of course, here we've got like lots of awesome gifts from everybody in the community. We have cupcakes. We've got the RSI logos, Cloud Imperium logo on it, and a Squadron 42 logo. That's brilliant. We have some mugs from the Black Widow Company and a nice crew coffee brewer. So Jared's part of the Black Widow Company, so thank you very much. Over here, this awesome wine gift, which I believe came from Solaris, so thank you very much, Solaris. And then on top of that, we also have the chocolates. That's all for the LA office from Samsung and T. Wellheim.
Those are good.
I believe in Finland. Thank you very much. So everyone can be here and eat sugar and be caffeinated and make Star Citizen. So over here is our server room. which is where the fiber actually comes
At
in.
one
This is
point,
actually Varda.
most of the liquor in
you
the
guys should
Austin
meet
studio
Varda,
was
my
fan
IT
produced.
guy
Like
in
fans just
Los
gave them
Angeles
liquor
for
bottles,
10 years.
just constantly.
And people used to like, well, I don't know if they used to, still may still do, but they used to have pizza delivered to them too, to the offices.
As an early angel
Food.
investor, so thank you very much, Varda. He's setting up all our server and the network stuff here, and in the old days, this used to be machines full to here, and now it's just a few racks, which is kind of cool. So let's head upstairs, and I can show you where the rest of the action happens. So up here is the big work area, which has a couple of Cloud Imperium stalwarts up first. So we have Sandy Gardner.
Get more racks now.
Heads up our marketing and our customer service. So over here, if we spin around, we have David Haddock, who's our incredibly talented writer, and he's hard at work. Although we have a whole bunch of nice computers on the way, but they show up next week, so he's still working on.
Everybody's working on laptops.
So obviously we don't have many people in it right now.
Yeah, they just said they just moved in that day.
Bigger. So in here is my office, and the idea is to try and have an open work environment so everyone can communicate and talk to each other. And then if we're doing a call, like an interview or something, close it up. Like that. So in here is my office, which we haven't put anything on the wall yet. And then over here is the Concordia, which was the flagship of Admiral Tolwyn in the Wing Commander movie. And this was actually something the art department built on the film, which we gave to the 3D effects artist to use as a model to use as reference. And then over here is my LA office machine, which I actually built last night. So in the little meeting table we got here, I have another present, which is Flight Suit. So that's kind of cool. And I think we have some dog tags here. Star Citizen, Titanium. Thank you very much. So over here is, so just kind of the last area, I think I didn't show, that we have an office over here. It's on the other side here where Sandy's sitting. And then in here we have, people can work here, and then there's a place that a lot of you guys will be seeing a lot, although you probably won't be realizing you're in this place because we've built a sort of small green screen stage. We're going to do video stuff from LA as well. Wingman's Hangar is going to have some competition, and this is the main sort of place we'll shoot against. All right, so these are the new Los Angeles Cloud Imperium offices. So it's our beachhead in the war of development of Star Citizen. If any of you out there are interested in joining the battle to make the best space sim ever, that would be great. We're looking for physics programmers, graphics programmers, and some gameplay programmers. And if you're a great artist or you're a designer, you want to contribute, please reach out to us. This wouldn't have happened without all your support. So your support's enabling us to do this, enabling us to do what we're doing in Austin, and we're also going to be ramping up some in Montreal. So we're going to make a fantastic game for you. Thank you so much.
Can I just say how young he looked right then?
Man, that's what I was about to say.
It was 10 years ago, all right?
Over,
That's 10 years ago.
Yeah, that girl in that video is probably an 18-year-old now.
Yeah, exactly. So again, these are like the origins of, again, the vision aspect of where they wanted to go. We know that CIG has now grown beyond this with the acquisition of Turbulent. They now are around 1,100 employees now. So the company has grown since then. And we just showed you guys.
Are you telling me they didn't start off with 500 million, all these employees from day one?
No, not
what? They grew there?
Not at all. They had to grow there to get there, right?
Another thing to keep in mind.
That's a lie. He's spending that money on yachts. His time on yachts. They still
yachts, hookers, and blow.
13 employees, Jared Huckabee, a couple guys on Reddit, and really good video makers, and everybody else is just yachts.
To also put this in context, CIG does not have those two studios in LA and Austin anymore. They have brand new studios, which are not brand new anymore, but those are the old studios when they first started out.
Yep.
So
if I didn't make that clear, thank you for making that clear. This was know how things got started. How they got started, okay?
Well, they still have studios in those locations. Just not that same.
Just not those facilities. They've left those places. They've left those places. Absolutely. Okay. Thank you for that, Thrakazog. Again, thank you for the gifted sub to fastcart. Oh God,
thank you.
Like he needs one. Okay,
Don't get fastcart nothing from here on out.
I gotta commit all these bands I'm getting, man. I gotta speaking of bands.
God. Okay, let's talk about phase 2 here of the stretch goals, because we talked about the stretch goals that we saw earlier that went up to $6 million. But as many of you all know, that there was a period where CIG had additional stretch goals, and CIG did a survey of the community, basically asking, basically saying in so many words, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, they brought in a certain amount of money, and that amount of money will help them to maybe do more than they thought they could. And if the communities was behind it, they would continue to grow Star Citizen into a much bigger IP. And so ultimately they began these additional tiers, and those tiers ended up going up to as high as, if I'm not mistaken, $65 million. That's where it stopped. The reason why I'm mentioning that, and I'm mentioning this with feature creep, is because this has been a topic that, especially from maybe 2016 through 2018, there was a lot of conversation about feature creep. And even now, it still comes up every once in a while. And to give you an example of what might be a time where someone will say it. We may, for example, I remember a good classic one. When the Gatak Raylan came out, there were people who said, where did this come from? We never heard of Gatak. And I've been waiting on my Banu Merchantman, or I've been waiting on my Idris, and it seems like they just keep making up stuff to bring in money. That's kind of how people often feel. But it's not just because it's something that they own, but even if it's just something that doesn't show up on the roadmap or on the progress tracker, there's a question about, is this just stuff that they're making up to either make money, or is it because someone got some great idea at CIG and decided to say, let's do this. On Paul's show yesterday, and I'm going to let everybody else jump in after this, but Paul, I want you to comment first. You and I both talked about what happened with, was there a shift in CIG's roadmap? I'm going to use that expression. Once we got procedural planets in place, when the idea of being able to land anywhere on a planet, because many of you all remember that in the early days, that was going to be something that CIG was going to come up with much, much later. Originally, you were going to land at a landing zone. It was going to be automated. You were just going to ask for permission. The game was going to land you through a cinematic motion. You would land, and then after that, you would get out of your ship. But
like midfield.
Well, yes, and that's okay, and that's okay though. That's okay within the context of that's what CIG was going to do. But as you know, one of the developers at CIG on their own time decided to work on the idea and came back to CIG and said, hey, I think I've got something you may want to see, showed it to CIG, and that was the ability to go from space to a planet and land with no loading screens and be able to also land anywhere. That changed, obviously, to me. I would think that changed the outlook or the roadmap of what CIG's possibilities were of what they could now possibly do. So, Paul, let me get your thoughts on that, and then I'll take it around the room. Anybody got anything to talk about in relation to feature creep, stretch goals, any of that stuff?
So, a couple things to note. This happened. So there's some historical context to understand. Around this time, 2015, Crytek was having a problem. Crytek was hemorrhaging money, and they did not have the money to pay their employees. So in the early years, or in the early months of 2015, there has been a bunch of reports coming out that Crytek employees had not been paid for months. And as a result, many Crytek employees left Crytek and were looking for jobs. And CIG had been constantly looking for people who were good with Crytek, because CryEngine is a very different engine from other engines, and they wanted to get some people who were good with them. That's why they did the Next Gray Starship and stuff like that. So they opened up a new studio in Frankfurt specifically to snatch up Crytek engineers who were already in Frankfurt. And this would eventually lead to the lawsuit with Frankfurt. It's one of the reasons behind the lawsuit, at the very least, is what a lot of people believe. I'm not a legal expert. I don't know exactly the reason why, but
they could. Paul, what is the name of it when you try to grab employees? They couldn't get them for that because they weren't paying their employees. So technically, they could leave.
Yeah, but I mean, there's
an expression for that when you take employees.
Poaching.
They couldn't get CIG for that because they weren't paying their people. So then they went on to the next thing.
It wasn't really
my belief.
it wasn't a legal thing. It was more of a like a personal thing.
Yeah, personal thing.
Like it soured the relationship between CIG and Crytek. But the reality was that several people who built the original CryEngine had been acquired by CIG effectively. Like they came on board CIG, they started to work for CIG, including Brian Chambers and John Crew, who both worked on the original CryEngine. Like they were people who worked on the original version of, like, if you follow John Crew's Twitter, he complains about how he was removed from the credits of the original of Crytek of CryEngine. Crisis.
Did they grab Todd Pappy too?
He wasn't, but he wasn't. I don't think he was at.
Oh, he had already left.
Was he at CryEngine? No, I don't think he was at Crytek. Rather, I don't think he was at Crytek. Okay, maybe.
I thought he was.
Oh, okay, maybe he was.
I think you're thinking Sean Tracy. Tracy.
Well, I know Sean Tracy was there too. They got him and the other guy who does the animation.
Yeah, but the thing was that in 2015, or I think it was 2014, at I think GDC, several people who now work on the Planet Tech team had experimented with procedurally generating a city from scratch using the CryEngine, and they presented it at GDC. I found a very low 480p version of that video that exists that shows it. It's very poor quality, but the idea was that it was completely rendered in engine, procedurally generated to make it like a realistic city.
Oh.
And CryEngine at the time said, it's like, this is a cool technology. We're never going to use it. Goodbye. And so those people getting hired by CIG turned to Brian Chambers and said, we have this technology. We know it can be done. Can we rebuild it using the Star Citizen's version of the engine? And Brian Chambers said, go for it, as a kind of an R&D project. Wow. Didn't tell Chris. They just did it. And when they had after a couple of months of working on it, they showed off their own version of this to Chris. And what they showed off was, if you look it up, it's called Pupil to Planet.
Right.
And I believe that's effectively the pitch that they showed Chris. And Chris went, we have to change now because we have such a level of detail that's possible. We have to do full render. And that, as a result, because up to this point, I don't think they'd even sold a ground vehicle. I mean, I think they may have sold the Dragonfly, but I don't think they have.
No,
there was no ground vehicles. No ground vehicles were mentioned other than the PTV. But the PTV was designed to get you through your
hangar. Their hangars, right? That's right.
Yeah. From Pupil to Planet. And
I'll put the link in chat.
And that required CIG to entirely invent new technology and invent new gameplay to function with this new planetary generation. And that, in my opinion and in my experience, is one thing that CIG will never admit. That is effectively, they had to take everything they've done and they had to throw it in the garbage. Everything was thrown away.
Got the whole game.
Start from scratch in 2015.
That was a combination of that. Was Paul? Correct me if I'm wrong. That was a combination of that and going from 32-bit to 64-bit. That was also part of it? Yep. Okay.
Yeah, that was part of the back end because they wanted to go from 32 to 64-bit to have larger maps, and then there was also the mega map, which allowed them to load up the entire map in the background for the maps and. But I think that was the big one because it required a completely fundamental redesign of how the game works. Because up to this point, they were thinking Freelancer 2. And you can get out of your ship and walk around in space stations, but like a space station they could control small corridors and stuff like that. When you talk about planets, it was completely different. So there was... And that is a big point because I think when we talk about feature creep and stretch goals, that was really the biggest problem was that CIG went from having this idea of what they wanted to do, and then that idea completely changed when they had this new technology. And I do believe that to CIG's credit, they did say multiple times that they were willing to throw away everything they did or to take new technology as it came and start over if they needed to. They never officially said they did so because You don't say, hey, remember all that technology we've been building since 2012 that we've been talking about?
Yeah.
We're going to take all that technology and we're going to throw it away and start from scratch. People would have lost their minds.
Oh, Kotaku would have had a boner. They would have been writing it up. They would have had a field day.
Yeah. Let me
See, they fucked up.
Unreal Engine.
Yeah, let me go to Gomab. Gomab, real quick. Gomab is one of our software people in our show, guys. In case you don't know it, he has a great background and education in it. Gomab, what do you see the implications of? Because there was an interview last year that the folks over at InfoRunners did with Sandy Gardner, and they asked her about this thing of feature creep. People saying, hey, people keep saying, is there feature creep? Has there been feature creep? And Sandy said, as far as I know, and this is speaking within her context, she's over marketing now, she's not a developer, but she did say that after 2015, that things are pretty much where they were from 2015. I'm not saying there weren't any tweaks. I'm not saying that there were, but we're talking about feature creep. We're talking about things that dramatically come into the game that, like Paul was just mentioning in relation to the people to planet aspect, where now you could land and fly anywhere on a planet. We're talking about stuff that's of that level. Gomab, because you know about this, and I opened up earlier talking about how sometimes we want to know more, but we can't. There's so much stuff that, even in your field, there's only so much stuff that you put out into the public. Is that correct? And I mean, I know the public wants to know more, but give me your thoughts about this whole idea of the, wanting to know more, because we want to talk about the education of the masses next.
First of all, I want to clarify for the masses, I am not a software developer.
Yeah.
I have extensive experience working for very large software companies in different. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows I'm not a developer.
He's not a dev.
Those titles are special.
This is true. Just like fastcart.
Yeah. Just like fastcart. Special. So damn, what was the question? No, all right. So here's the deal, right? CIG has always been accused of feature creep, and saying that don't say anything. Like, hey, if you say something out loud, Chris Roberts may get wind of it, like it, and tack on another 18 years to the development of this project, trying to figure out how to make it work. So that's not 100% honest. We say that tongue in cheek for those who actually have two brain cells that are, strong enough to get along enough to form a thought pattern. We know that that's not how it works, right? Sandy is kind of right because they've laid out the capabilities, the things that they want to do. They want, mining, salvage, cargo, freight, multiple systems. They've laid out the framework of it. And they've been fairly honest with us about saying we haven't figured out how to do those other things yet, right? They haven't figured out how to do server meshing. They think they figured it out. They're working on it. They're progressing on it, but they haven't all the way figured it out. Or they may, at this point, they may have, and they're just in the process of testing it so that they can figure out how to graft it onto the current state of the game and begin to rolling it out. So, no, I don't think they have a feature creep per se, and that's the challenge of the level of transparency that they have right now. Like I said earlier, right? The level of entitlement from a lot of this community is like, hey, look, I need to not only know everything you're doing, every discussion that's being had, every decision that's being made, I also need to know every thought that you have about it. And even then, they're not going to, they won't be happy about it. I mean, CIG releases things that they do a pretty good job of couching. I hate when they release dates, right? I will set them on fire every time they release a date about something and say, oh yeah, we're releasing this by the end of next quarter. Stop doing that, because you've never made a date in the history of your company. So stop putting out dates. But I don't think it's feature creep. I think it's more they're just trying to figure it out, and they don't know what they don't know until they start trying to figure it out, and then they say, oh crap, we thought PES was going to be something easy,
Right.
or server messing was going to be something easy that was going to knock it out in 5 to 6 months. It's actually taken us 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, Socks was a good example of that. You know, it started out with that, and it progressed from Socks to what was the other thing between Socks and PES? iCash. You know,
iCash,
yeah,
right,
you know,
iCash.
yeah,
That had to get thrown away.
yeah, and that happens in development.
And I want to say real quickly, the info on this interview with Sandy Roberts, I think I had a real good point that she made, that until they were making the company until 2015, basically. So I think that's an important point.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about that before, Fastcart, that's kind of like the barometer clock that we've used as to when CIG became, because some of you we didn't go through all the history here, but there's stuff about other companies, contractors, Ilphonic, other companies that worked under CIG in the past. Moonslider, right. And so we kind of look at it as there's a certain time frame that we think that's when things really started to rolling. And from our clock, at least the one we look at, we see it more as an 8-year thing, a 7 to 8 year period, where other people go back to Kickstarter and say, well, it's been since 2012. And that's not the reality. 2012 was not when things really went into motion.
I mean, you don't get the people I get, because I get people who come in saying that CIG was developing Star Citizen in 2009 because Chris Roberts said that he was working on a prototype in 2009.
By himself, yes.
By himself. That's when development started. And at a certain point, I'm like, did development start when Chris Roberts became a sperm and the dad's sperm hit the ovum? We're going back to the 1970s? Wow. Is that how long Star Citizen's been developing?
Wow. But, you know. Yeah, we hadn't had anybody go that far back on us. Wow.
In the South here, I'm in Atlanta. So in the South, what we do is to them people, we pat them on the head and say, my sweet summer child.
God bless you. Okay. God bless you, my sweet summer child.
My sweet summer child. That's just some trolling right there.
Don't forget. Bless your heart.
Yeah, bless your heart. Bless your heart.
Okay. Don't you say that to me. Don't you? I'm also in the South. Fast you do not say that slur at me. You do not say that slur down here. That is fighting words. That is. You see people die for saying that in the South.
Bless your heart.
All right. I'm just making an example.
Yeah, bless his little heart. Okay, we're at this point now talking about educating the masses, and I think that there has been a need for education as a reality. I know that I have been guilty of being what we call a backseat developer, thinking that my little bit of computer experience was enough for me to tell CIG how things are supposed to go. And over the years, I've realized that I needed to learn a lot. And one of the things I needed to learn was this phrase called pre-alpha. I thought I knew what it meant, and I had to go back and look at what beta meant and what alpha meant. And then of course, pre-alpha. Now pre-alpha, it's funny in the industry that these definitions can be tweaked a little bit to fit the needs of the particular company. So this is not necessarily written in stone, but this is a good generalized version of what it means. And when Star Citizen came out, we would often see pre-alpha. And most of us were familiar with beta. We were familiar with, Paul mentioned this earlier, that early access independent games. We kind of knew about early access and beta, but this was different. Pre-alpha is a standard term to denote a number of interim milestones between prototyping and alpha, each of which includes new functionality and or game content. Pre-alphas often mandate incremented improvements on a number of parallel areas in the project, but rarely expect any one of those areas to be complete. That last line is the line that I wonder if that's the one that we wrestle with as backers. Rarely expect that any one of those areas will be complete. And there's quite often, we as a community often say, when are they going to finish something? Why isn't this done? And in a pre-alpha state, it basically, in this general definition, it's not going to be, it may not be, it probably won't be. Now CIG doesn't say pre-alpha now. I think nowadays they say alpha. That's where they moved.
I want to say 2018. That's when they changed.
Yeah, they went to right. But again, I'm going from beginnings till, because I want people who maybe didn't know that, because right now it's still called alpha, but I wanted people to know that there was this period of pre-alpha. And I think that there were expectations, even though we heard this term, a lot of us didn't really get it. We really didn't understand that this level of gameplay is normally never, matter of fact, not normally, it's never shown to the outside public. This is all internal stuff. And much of what we may have been railing against and pushing back against and angry about was stuff that technically we would have never seen. So it's kind of a bitter horse pill with this. You know, we do want the transparency. We do want to know how things are going and the progress. But at the same time, that horse pill is really difficult to swallow when we want to be able to apply those things that we see and we can't, you know, out of frustration or bugs or glitches or whatever it may be, or just the fact that those aspects of the game are not yet complete. Gio, when you came in and you started playing, did you deal with any frustrations in the sense of I mean, I know everybody does, right? Everybody gets those days where they get bad. You even told me you got a point where you got burnt out. You know, how did you address that? I mean, was it just stepping back from it? Did you just go with the flow? How did you deal with that?
Well, I knew coming in it was going to be hella bugs, being an alpha. So I came in with that mindset, like it's going to be bugs. A lot of them some of them are like really silly. But they were doing things what made me take a step back, where you want to add these events and put rare items in there, and the game's just not ready for that. You don't have server meshing, and nobody wants to sit here and deal with a broken game with 30 Ks trying to earn something, because that's just going to piss you off. Like it's like 2 weeks you got to try to earn it, and you know the servers and stuff is not working the way it's supposed to be. The core tech is not in there. Like I'm down for that type of stuff when it's ready and we can do that, but it just comes frustrating when you're trying to win that rare stuff. Like in my case, the Van Duel mask, which made me take a break. I'll be going on 4 years I haven't played Star Citizen since let me see, yeah, it'll be probably October, almost around CitizenCon. I haven't played Star Citizen not one bit. So like all this saltiness and stuff I see, that's why I took a step back, because I'm like, you're sitting there whining, do what I did. Step back, take a chill pill. But some of these dudes can't do that because it'll mess up their money, because they're like, if I stop playing Star Citizen, ain't no one going to watch me because I'm too boring to play any other game to keep an audience. So I didn't want to be that guy. I didn't want to be the guy who just pisses and gets, pisses on Star Citizen all the time and get mad. I didn't want to do that because I love this game so much. But there became a point where I'm like,
you'd step back.
I can't do it.
You just step back. That makes sense. Yeah.
Step back, but you got to know what you're getting into. You have to watch the streamers. You have to watch the YouTube videos. Just don't say, hey, I'm gonna buy an Explorer pack and I'm spending all this money and I want to do everything. I want to be, Top Gun Tom Cruise in every ship I buy in the pack.
Yeah.
Figure out what you're doing. Watch ahead of time. There's like so many years of content.
But let me ask you this: that's difficult though, because and let me go to fastcart.
Is it though?
And Paul. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you why. We've gone through the journey together, right? In fact, I'm gonna go to this next slide to emphasize my point here. We have been through this journey here, and in real time, and there are a lot of people who have not seen a quarter of this. So to sit through Chris Roberts' 10 for the Chairman, for example, you know what I mean?
I did that though.
Yeah, but you were there.
Like, I went back.
Gio, how many years you go back though? You go back till when? 20 what? 15?
No.
2016?
I started watching in 2013. I didn't buy a package until 2014.
Yeah, but my point is, you've been a part of the journey. I'm talking about people who may have just came in 2019, 2020.
I still had to go back and look at some Wingman
I did
and
too.
some other stuff.
But
Gio, let me put it into the perspective. There has been something like 1 million backers of Star Citizen in the last 3 years alone. So like they jumped like one to like between half a million and 1 million backers in the last 3 years. So it almost doubled in size the last 3 years. So a lot of people legitimately don't know a lot of this stuff.
Put it a different way. They went from getting like 200 new accounts a day to getting 1,500 new accounts a day, and that's still gone.
Yeah,
but I get it. It's a lot of content to take in, but why do you have to throw your wallet at the screen and get pissy when something doesn't come out?
Well,
research it. Same thing with NFT and some of these cryptos. They have these things called white papers, and you read it.
But that's because
you research. You don't buy and get pissy later on. Like, hey, man,
someone said this earlier. Some people said earlier, gamers don't like to read. You're one of those people who does the research.
I'm one of them.
I get it.
Research.
I get it. But my point is that, and I don't get me wrong, you're right. The information is out there. But my point was that this information has grown exponentially now. And there's the old information. There's the old information that's out of date. Trying to sort through that stuff, trying to remember what was current, what got changed, what got dropped. Like we were talking about 32-bit earlier. Some folks don't even know what we were talking about. There's a whole lot of information. Go ahead, Fastcart.
And even if you know what you're talking about, if you go try to search for that in YouTube, you have like 10 different links, and you're not sure which one is the link you really want to go to, or which one is more relevant to the topic that you want to learn about.
Mad style gamers are like hell with the reading. Okay, I don't know.
That would be a lot of reading.
Yeah, it is a lot of reading. I mean, it's a lot of information.
But Griffey, you're one of the people like me that you knew early on when you backed this game, you knew it was going to take a long time.
I said that about Star Citizen, about the Persistent Universe. Squadron 42, I've always kind of fluctuated with because I wasn't sure, but I definitely said that the Persistent, because we played Eve and other stuff. I was like, it's going to take them at least 10 years to do that sucker. That was how I felt about it.
We're not no super heavy, game devs or know anything about. I don't know anything about game, but I know like some of the best games, like most Rockstar games, take 10+ years. Same thing with Cyberpunk. That took like 10 years, even though we know how that came out, and they're a veteran team.
Andromeda.
Andromeda. Yeah. That's another veteran team. So you got these veteran teams that are even messing up, and then somehow people expect CIG to be the holy grail. They started off with all the 500 million and 1,000 employees. Like, it wasn't that. It was stepping stones. They've been taking their time. They had to re-gut their game, put everything back in. We had to get some of the engineers from Crytek and devs. That was a blessing to get that, because people were saying, oh, we should have the Unreal Engine. But if you ask me, that's the next best thing, to get the people from the Crytek engine in your company and start filling this thing out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just as good as having Unreal Engine to me, if you ask me.
You're right. And the reason why we're talking about this educating the masses piece is because CIG has made that effort to get us educated. A lot of times people may say, oh, there's not enough information, blah, blah, blah. But there are literally thousands of hours of information. There are newsletters. There is the website. There's tons of info that comes out in relation to this. Go ahead, Paul. What you thinking, Paul? What you got? You're muted, buddy.
You're muted.
Is he?
No, he's just not talking.
I was talking. I was just pointing at the list that you had up there. I'm pointing that list, like just as an example. And you also didn't add the monthly reports on there, or the progress reports, or the progress tracker, or the progress tracker updates.
Or from the chairman.
Yeah.
Like GomAB.
Yeah, I just went with all the video stuff that's out there. You're right. It was 3 a.m. But yeah, you're absolutely right. There's way more stuff that gives us information. But again, it also can be overwhelming. There is a lot of information, but my point here is to say that the reality is that CIG has put out a tremendous amount of information to the community for us to digest. But to Gio's point, we also have to be willing to put the effort in to digest it. It's a difficult thing when people say, and I understand some people may say, I like ISC, but I don't like watching, SCL, because it's all technicals talk. Well, that's true. And I get it. Some people don't want to hear that. They really want to, and that's why they created the 2 shows the way they are. One is that show that's the digestible, quick bite size. You get some really great stuff. And if for those people who are the gearheads who want to go deep into the whole thing, the next day they get to spend an hour doing that. And they understand that dynamic. But either way it goes, there's plenty of information out there for the community to know where the project is going. Okay.
It's an open book test, and you got the study guide to look up to make an informed decision that you want to buy a ship. That's all I'm saying. There's more. This game got more than enough information than any other game to figure out, like, you know what? I think I'm going to step back and hold off, or I'm going to, I'm going to buy it. Like, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
That is my favorite, my favorite quote, which is, this is an open book test that you failed.
Yeah.
GomAB have been trying to talk for 5 minutes, y'all.
Well, I was sitting there, he was sitting there eating. I couldn't tell if he was trying to talk or if he was eating. I didn't know. Go ahead, GomAB, get in. Jump in.
I have my hand up.
I'm sorry. I'm reading chat.
Hey,
I'm reading chat. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
All right, 3 things. All right, first of all, it's a lot, but the biggest asset that this project have is its community, right? You got folks like Dig Dad. I see you in the comments. What's up, brother? Making videos, with the patches that come out, guides like, hey, you're thinking about this? Check this out first. Let me walk you through some of the highlights. You got folks like our esteemed guest here, Mr. Paul Shelley. Check him out a little bit, right? Just he'll tell you about what you need to know, right? So it's while there is a lot of there's an encyclopedia set worth of information, there's ways to consume it relatively quickly. Secondly, free flies. As much as us seasoned backers hate them, right? They serve an important purpose here, right? To let folks come in and participate in this shit show that we love so much for free before they put down any money. If you don't, I mean, and they happen so often that there's no reason to jump in before experiencing one. They happen all the time, at least 2 to 3 times a quarter.
We didn't have those back then.
We didn't. They're happening all the time now. So if you came in and you dropped bread and you didn't do the free fly and you didn't watch Paul's videos and you didn't watch Dick That's videos, hey, look, man. Hey, I'm gonna play the smallest violin for you. Then I'm gonna swallow that bad boy because I don't give a shit.
You ain't lying.
The third one. Let's normalize not calling when devs are trying to do something that's never been done before and they miss the market, or they don't get it right, or they try and it's a scientific thing. Let's normalize not calling that messing up or fucking up or lying. Let's normalize saying, hey, you guys, they're developing in real time. You have no idea how many lines of code get written and deleted every day because it just does not work. So as the pinnacle of the community here, let's normalize not putting a negative connotation on the work that they're doing, because it is really, it's kind of spectacular what they've been able to do so far. And it is anytime you're trying to do something that's never been done before, it's going to take longer than anything's ever taken before.
That was worth the wait, Gomab. Thank you.
Yeah, I know that has come up before, Prisoner, where people have talked about mismanagement. And it's unfortunate that even comes up because there's nobody who's ever left from the company who's talked about mismanagement as far as I know of. And every evolving company, no company gets it right on every step. Companies have their faux pas. They make a call. It's a bad call. They have to regroup. Sometimes they have to start up. Sometimes there's a lot of things that companies will do. If you've ever owned a business, some of you have owned businesses. I've owned a business. Sometimes you're successful, but you don't get every call right. And quite often we do want CIG to get every call right. And we don't give grace to the possibility that, as Gomab said, they are trying to develop. Now, we're going to talk about CitizenCon things. We're running over already, but I do want to talk about the fact that it's always very easy to come up with solutions when you're on the outside of something. But when you get closer to the inside of it, you start to find out what the realities are. And for most of the people I've talked, and I'm sure Paul has too, there are plenty of people that will tell you who work in the software industry and the gaming industry, they may feel very differently about CIG's approach, maybe the way they're doing it or their approach to it. But very rarely have I ever heard anyone that I know who's into software who says they're doing it wrong. They may challenge some of the decisions they make, but doing it wrong is another story. And one of the reasons why they say that, as I said, even with their experience and knowledge, they can't see completely behind the curtain. They don't know all the information to even come to a conclusion as to whether, as you mentioned, Gomab, they've effed up, or whether there's mismanagement or any of that stuff, right? I went before.
Griffey, how much of that falls on how much CIG hired those third-party companies in the beginning when they didn't have money to add on. So a lot of that, people say mismanagement. Maybe they could have vetted those third-party companies like Ilphonic. We heard mess ups before, like they put like 1 million polys on the Constellation door, but like mess ups like that. Those guys only made like portable games.
The reason why I wouldn't say it's a mess up is because it was still about development, right? There was nothing written in stone. Everybody was trying to create something that did not exist.
But Chris,
how would they know about that?
Wait, let's finish. What was also the fastest way to scale up and get people to work? How the hiring process of trying to hire people individually versus hiring in a company to do. And remember, Ilphonic and them did produce an actual FPS module. We watched it. We saw it. The problem was they had conflicts between the metrics and some other things that they had done. And ultimately, CIG did do what you said. They ended up engrafting in and bringing it all under their umbrella, just like they just did now with Turbulent. So my point is that may have been a bad call. All I'm saying is give room that businesses can sometimes make a bad call. That's all I'm saying. You can vet all you want and still make a bad decision. You can have everybody in the room at the table and still make a bad call. You know,
it's not like in-house though too as well, because like I said, I work at a company that's been known for over 100 years, and they still mismanage, still hire the wrong third-party people, and these is well-established companies. So this stuff happens all the time, but you have less control when it's not under your umbrella, when it's not your company. When you hire someone out, like, hey, I'm giving you X amount of money to do this, and they still mess up because they got different supervisors, different managers they answer to.
Look at what happened. What thing is, on the same flip side, look at what's been going on with Turbulent. That has been an amazing partnership to the point where they just went ahead and brought them in.
Oh,
right,
they're the best one, hands down.
Right.
Yeah.
So so what I'm saying is, like, it's always easy to stand back on the sideline and point like, you messed up. Or it's always easy to look backwards and say, hindsight is 2020, you messed up. Thing is, when you're doing something, you have to make the best choice based upon the information that you have
at that moment.
You know what I'm saying? And like, if they lived under this Ricky Bobby philosophy, if you first you know what I'm saying? Whereas like, if you don't make the perfect decision at every stage that you get your head whapped, my God, they wouldn't, like, these folks wouldn't be doing nothing.
Yeah,
we wouldn't have what we have now. Let's just normalize giving them some grace and some space, and the benefit of the doubt, and not coming over the top with the negative bullshit that they got to deal with the rest of the plebes out here. Let's be the example here.
Yeah.
Let's be the example.
And again, that's why I'm coming from a business model standpoint. Go ahead, Fastcart, and I want to get going because our time's running. Go ahead.
I know. I'm going to say this real quick before I move on, but I just wanted to. This game will be out by now if they had a publisher. That's all I'm going to say.
Shut up. Yeah, it would be. It would
have been broken as all hell.
Yeah, we'd be playing something else right now. Go ahead, Paul.
I'm going to add one more quick thing, just because it's important to keep into context with this. Is that with this discussion, is that development of video games is something that Disco Lando says a lot, and it bears repeating that it's called game development, not game construction.
That's right.
Amen.
Because that's not how software is made. Sometimes you can have a pretty simple software, banking software, spreadsheet software, something that's been done before. You know what you're doing. It's not too difficult to recreate some of those ideas. Bang. But when it comes to video games, there is countless. I can think of like 5 or 6 examples off the top of my head of games that have developed in weird starting positions. In some cases, completely different genres and different just different games. Halo started as an RTS and then went to a third-person shooter, then a first-person shooter. The Horizon Zero Dawn was going to have guns in it originally. Like they pulled guns from, I think, Resistance that they were using, or not Resistance. It was something with the hell gas. I can't remember. The Killzone. It's the same developers who did Killzone. They just put Killzone guns in there to kind of test around with these ideas. So like games will often have completely different aspects when they start, and often they throw away ideas, throw away whole chunks of a game so that they can develop what they need to. And while a lot of people would say that's waste of resources or that's mismanagement, that's how games are developed. Because at the end of the day, what you get is people who are working there learned what not to do. And sometimes learning how to make something is learning how to not make it first so that you can learn how to make it and just how it works.
Good point.
So
good point. Which
about right.
Paul leads us into the next point here, because we were just talking about making the mistakes. There was a period where there was what I titled today for falling from grace. These areas, if you were around back then, you might remember where the conflicts came here. Some of you might be wondering about the RSI doors, if you remember this particular subject. Paul's looking
reaction.
Okay. Believe it or not, guys, in the LA office, CIG has these doors, and some of you have seen them in their videos over the years. But when these doors were put in, it became a huge issue. People were saying, because what it is, it's a security door, right? You go up to it, you take your ID, you show it on a little mark, and the door's electronically open, kind of like turbo lift doors, right? And one of the things that came out of some people's mouths was, oh my God, how much did our backer money they spend to put those doors in? And the door numbers range from, I saw everything from $30,000 to $100,000 back then. There was some magazine articles about it, and this is how much it cost. My corporation has doors like this, and it cost them $75,000 to put these in, and blah blah. Where'd the money come from? Blah 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 blah. Does any of you guys remember this?
I do.
I do too. Yeah, I remember they got exposed bad.
Let me explain something, because I've actually seen these doors, and I think most of us have seen these doors. Can I tell you how cheap these doors are?
They are.
Go ahead.
They are not security doors.
Go ahead and read it. It's right there. Go ahead and read it. It's right there.
I could kick those doors open with like a just slight nudge.
Yep.
It's entirely cosmetic.
It sure is.
It's and I believe it was installed by a couple of devs who were doing it in their free time because they wanted it to be cool. There's also there's a great mural that they did, and they did it over their free time. It was the artists, so it's like the big artists who've been doing all of the ships and all of the concept art. They got together and painted this huge mural of Star Citizen art, and they did it over like one day. And it's like, and let me be quite clear. Anybody here who has an artist friend or is an artist can tell you they're insane. They'll do that. They'll be like, this is going to be cool. We're going to spend a night drinking beers and painting an entire wall because it's fun.
Exactly.
Like, not being paid for it either. It's just because they want to. So
this letter on the screen was somebody who actually wrote in. They wrote into tech support asking about those doors and where the money was being spent. And the person responded back and said, hey, we're not privy to give out financial information. But then at the bottom of it says, from a fellow backer to another, it's simply some wood with a garage door opener painted by the team. So you can rest assured that it was done in the most economical way.
I didn't know they had the receipts with it too.
Yeah. And so, just to get you to understand that sometimes the reality of what was going on versus what people believed. And unfortunately, this got generated by the community too. A lot of the stink for this. It wasn't people from the outside. But the reality of it was that CIG put it in. And it's funny because if you go to any type of corporate office, I mean, many of you guys watched the video for Starfield and they went around Bethesda's office. Oh my God, multi-million-dollar facility. Place is gorgeous, right? And people got upset about these wooden doors that the staff put together because they were done very well and they looked very professional. But the assumption was that backer money was being spent on those doors. And ultimately that wasn't the case.
Oh my God, a bunch of talented designers know how to make a door.
Some artists, right? They know how to make a door, right?
Talented artists and designers who make really good 3D models know also how to use a router and a saw and some paint.
Say it ain't so, Paul. Say it ain't so.
Well, don't we hear that now with the UK, the new UK office? People complain, well, they didn't need all this. Why they have all this? Like, first, it's like they do shows on there. People want a cool work environment. And then, people do office tours too. So they were probably thinking ahead with all this stuff. Like, hey, look at this cool tour. Look at the environment. You get immersed in here. But people still complain about the new UK studio.
The other thing that people forget is that there are still people that CIG is responsible to. And I'm talking about investors. There are other people who have their hand in here who also have a voice. So it's not like, Chris and Aaron just decide to up and do something. There's accountability levels, not just to the community, but even greater to those there are other people there. And making a move such as that particular facility was not something that was done rashly. I guarantee you that. I know it was questionable. People felt kind of funny about it. It was around COVID, blah, 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 blah. But they have some very smart people working for them. And I guarantee you they knew exactly what they were doing with the timing of where they went. In fact, the timing might have been impeccable because of COVID. It may have actually been impeccable during COVID, which a lot of us may not have thought. And look at now, they went from 700 or 800 staff. Now they're at 1,100 people already. And it plays accommodates.
CIG can't keep getting away with this. CIG can't keep getting away with this. They constantly manage to fall backwards into success. Like it just so happened that Crytek wasn't paying its employees, and now they got a bunch of people like that. It just so happened there was a worldwide pandemic, so it was really, really cheap to build and get access to facilities no one was using. Like you can't keep getting away with this, Chris.
And you can't still keep making a profit at the same time. That's the other thing, right?
And multiple first point, I just want to emphasize, developers are people too, and I think little projects like that really work to help to humanize them. So.
Yeah. Now, go ahead.
Pride in the project. There's pride in the project, and also Darj, because I'm not gonna be super overt about this because I'm under NDA for this. But I will say that a group of people that I do consulting with has had access to the Star Citizen, the new offices in Manchester, and Darj does point out that he'd heard from current employees who decided to take the job instantly when they walked into the new studio, and it's not when it wasn't even done yet.
Okay. Very cool.
Hiring piece easily.
Very cool.
It is. If you're going to be working, 8 to 16-hour days, depending on your job, and sometimes coming in at odd hours, it helps to have a pleasant environment to work in,
especially in that field. Let me go on to this.
Like you just said, Starfield. See, I mean, Bethesda. Their studio looked awesome.
It
That's
is.
People come in and do tours like, oh yeah, I want to do a job here.
Let me throw this at you guys.
Microsoft office in Atlanta is one of the biggest draws for recruitment. People see our office down here and it's like, oh wow.
Yeah, I can believe it. Let me hit this real quick. We talked about the things that happened externally that CIG has done that they got blamed for. Well, here's one that they probably will accept. And Paul, I'm going to let you talk about this because you've got something that's going to be coming up that we want people to know about. And we hope you guys will check this out with Paul. But we're going to show you an excerpt. It's just an excerpt. It's just a few scenes, not a lot, from what CIG used to do, these things called the holiday special. And they did it in December. And in 2016, they did the ultimate holiday special. And this is where you would see where production levels with CIG were not where they are now. Let's just put it that way. So I'm gonna let you guys take a look at this and then Paul can talk about it.
You spoke too soon. These woolen blankets are awesome. I mean, it looks so India.
Which ones?
It looks so Sri Lanka.
Which woolen blankets?
These.
Oh, they're just.
Hi, and welcome to Star Citizen's
so
holiday
beautiful.
live stream.
It's so
To tell us more, here is technical director Sean Tracy.
I should do another one of these for the memes.
Pop in.
Along the way, so let's take a look at some of it.
Tracy still had his fucking hair.
No mic. No mic.
Awesome. That's good. Well, allowing people to create footage like this was part of the reason why we pushed so hard to get the new camera system into 2.6.
Shit. So, Paul, why don't you elaborate a little bit on what we just saw there and let people know what they can look forward to this week?
So, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, George Lucas decided to have the worst idea known to mankind, which was known as the Star Wars Holiday Special. And ever since, no red-blooded Star Wars fan has ever let him or the franchise live it down. It is a collective facepalm that we must always hold aloft for everyone to see. Because even the mightiest must have their share of L's in any situation to humble the rest of us. So for those who don't know, there used to be a tradition every single year where CIG would put on a winter Christmas holiday special where they would do a live stream. It started off as a very informal thing, and they just kind of sat up there and they talked a little bit about some, maybe showed off some stuff, usually with Squad 42. One year they actually had an interview with John Rice Davies for that, and it was one of them. They actually had a 2016 live 2016, but it was 2016 was a big one where they had a bunch of it was a big like kind of spectacle, and it was a disaster. It was an utter disaster. They didn't quite know exactly how to there was hot miking, there was cuts to there's a famous cut of Sandy looking absolutely furious off the screen with a green screen just behind her, just there's a great point where like they cut to, I believe, so they said something to the effect of like, we're going to talk about our MVP for the for you know, and so they cut to Jared and Tyler, and they just picked it up and ran with it. They were like, this is entirely off script. We have no idea what we're doing, and they just made it up on the spot, an MVP that they could do, and it's a fantastic thing. Yeah. And it was so bad. Everyone so lampooned it so much that it stopped the tradition. There has never been a holiday live stream by CIG since. There probably never will be a holiday live stream again. And this is one of, I think, 2 or 3 videos that they removed from the official YouTube. It does not exist anymore. You can only find it on fan uploads because they refuse to they want to pretend it doesn't exist. So on Tuesday, I'm going to start a tradition in July where we're going to sit down, and we're welcome to join us, and we're going to watch the entire thing live. And I'm going to get as much alcohol as I can to prepare myself for it.
You have a time yet? You have time yet for it?
Yeah, it's going to be at noon. Oh, you said you couldn't do noon, right?
No, don't worry about me. Just put your time out there. Put your time out.
1 p.m. Eastern. 1 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday. Okay. Because it's Christmas in July, July 25th. So that'll be a special example of that. So
very nice.
And this will be on TheAstroPub on Twitch, or on YouTube, or both?
On Twitch and YouTube.
Twitch and YouTube. So I'll put all that.
I'm glad you put it on YouTube because I can't watch you live and I'll be watching you at work all the time. So good.
Yeah. It'll be pre-recorded so you all can watch the debauchery as it unfolds. So
my man.
So within this time frame, we've had a couple things happen. We had this big thing come up with the RSI doors. We had CitizenCon 2016 where we thought the vertical slice was going to come out and it didn't. The sandworm came out, and then we had the holiday special. The pivoting point now becomes 2017. So I'm going to show you guys this next video. Some of you all will remember there was the first vertical slice that we actually got from Squadron 42 was called the Moral Tour. And we saw the Moral Tour when we first saw it, and I'm going to show it to you. It's only about a minute worth of footage here, maybe a minute. But when you see it, I want you to know that when we saw this, we thought it was great. Sure, it was buggy, but we actually thought it was like so cool. And then in 2017, we see another vertical slice that's done for Squadron 42. And I want you to see the difference in the production value within 1 year. And this started to begin to change the channel a little bit about development and where CIG was going. So let's look at the Moral Tour first. Okay, we're going to do that one, and then we're going to do the vertical slice.
This is you.
Oh, hey, you must be the new pilot. Geez, they really got you jammed in here, huh? Welcome to the Stanton. I'm Eugene Morrow, Chief Engineer.
Out of the way. What's the number on that one?
Y'all are gonna love Morrow, by the way.
This one's ID 523R6.
Okay, got it.
Excuse me, sir.
Seriously, Morrow? I'll tell you when we find your converters. You? Lieutenant Commander Kelly wants you to report to the briefing room?
Cheese whip. That's how you welcome someone aboard. You're not even going to introduce yourself.
I'm Petty Officer Webster, Chief Mechanic. You should go to the briefing room.
You're hopeless,
I'm
Webb.
busy.
I'm heading to engineering. I can give you the tour.
If he has a map, he'll be fine.
Okay, now the next one I'm going to show you is the same thing, but you're also going to see the new version. It's just about a little over a year later, and I want you to check out not only the graphics difference, but the sound design difference in what they produced here.
All right, let's get them out of there. Ready up. Naga, get the door.
I just noticed they made like a military gray for it instead of that orange one.
Yeah.
that makes sense.
No, I've never been on one of these. It's nice. Not as nice as a Bengal, but nice. Move it! Oh, come on, clear out! What? No, please. OMC's gonna have to teach you screw-tops some manners. Are you looking to start trouble? Always.
Easy, though. She's trying to get a rise up.
Did I get a rise out of you, Aldo?
That's enough. Let's go, over there. The big one's coming out.
No southern moves.
Relax, son. Okay, let me go to Paul. Looks like fastcart disappeared for a moment. Paul, any thoughts about the comparison within what this did for us as far as the first time seeing this vertical slice from Squadron 42?
It was okay. The thing you got to remember is that this is a low frame rate as well. Like this was before OCS was added to Squadron. Like this was the year that OCS got added to the game that gave everyone massive like frame rate boosts and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But the fact that like these are the same games 1 year apart was nuts. Like even today, like I can't imagine because it's gotten better than this. Mm-hmm. We know it's gotten better than this because like this is low quality for Star Citizen, let alone Squadron. So
this is 2017. 2017
is 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What is OCS? It's object container streaming, which basically allowed them to not have to stream out, have everything stream in. So like a lot of these cutscenes are super janky because what you're seeing is the camera in game and it's rendering the entirety of the ship, the Stanton, and the cutscene at the same time, which is why it stutters because your camera is trying to render everything in the same time. So every time you kind of pan over little areas, like the stuff in the distance is all being rendered in too. Yeah. So, this was nuts, and this was 1 year apart, and I think these were both. The vertical slice wasn't a live stream, but it was a video that was dropped during the holidays, like right after CitizenCon. So,
yeah. Gomab, you got thoughts on this one?
I mean, the same thing Paul said, man. Like, and that looked like something that we used to play on like the original Xbox versus the Xbox 360, and now we're playing, on 3080s and 4090s and stuff. So, it's cool to see that they've been able to evolve the engine, either a combination of evolving the engine and taking advantage of the engine's capabilities in order to make the game look as good as it does now. But again, like I said before, we're still probably looking at a really good, like if we're just being honest with ourselves, Star Citizen is beautiful, but it's beautiful in like 2018, 2019 level graphics, right? I don't think anybody will say it's the most graphically intense game out there right now, but I think there's headroom for it. As I don't want them working on that right now. I want them working on the back end. Get it fixed.
Yeah. Gio, you were there for both of these, I think, right? Because you were around when this came out as well, right?
Yep, I was definitely around for this.
Yeah.
Like, I was shocked on both, to be honest.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm simple because I was a console player at the time, but even the hangar tours opened my eyes. I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. But I know, like, seeing the different trailers side by side. I've never seen them side by side. I've seen them separately, but it's like, damn, bro, they get better and better. Then you add that leaked video that happened last year, leaked, quote unquote. It still looks better than most of the games that are out right now. So it's good to know that CIG is keeping up with, all the newer current games that are out. Star Citizen is still on the top of the list to me, the best looking game, which made me jump into PC gaming. But I just hope they keep doing what they're doing and add more people from the Crytek team if they can, if possible. Because obviously, you look at this, we definitely benefited from that, them coming over because the other video looks like before before Crytek people came in, and the other one looks like after they came in. So they keep improving it, making it look good. And I'm ready for Squadron 42 to come out hopefully next year, 2025. Fingers crossed.
FC.
Can I just say what a difference a year make? And this is like RTX off versus RTX on. People may get that reference. The difference in quality. So yeah. That was substantial.
The thing that I want to pick out is that I want to necessarily focus on the pretty side of it, but the tech side of it. With this is Squadron, and the thing for me is I've paid attention to a lot of things that have happened. The frame rates are better. The sound design is incredibly much better. The first one was just some voices with an echo reverb on them. You've got music composition, a whole lot of stuff. This was what we were actually looking for in 2016, was this to be the vertical slice. And so within a year, it took them a year, but a year later, we went from what was the Morrow Tour the previous year to that. And this began to be, for me, the reset with what happened with CIG. Now, that's just me personally. It just seems like things seem to be picking up a different type of pace once we got past that. And maybe it was just a turning point for the company. I know that they had moved into, one of the things we didn't get to talk about was the shifting with CryEngine and moving into Lumberyard. They were advancing the engine. Is it Star Engine still, Paul, or what is it now? What is the engine called officially?
It's internally called Star Engine, but it's based off of Lumberyard, which is now, it's like an Amazon. It's now called the Amazon open source engine or something like that. But
it's off of the AWS stuff and everything else, right?
Yeah, it's got a different name for it, but yeah, it's based off of AWS. But at this point, effectively, it's its own engine. They can't legally and distinctly say that it's its own engine, but
it's something very customized to them. It's something very customized to them, right?
Oh, they're not using Lumberyard?
No, it's a fork. Lumberyard is a fork of CryEngine.
Right.
And can they legally call it a Star Engine then, or is that something that's
he says it's internal? He says it's internal.
As far as I know.
What were you going to say, Gomab?
So I say the Lumberyard engine is a fork.
Mm-hmm.
That's a developer term. Even though I'm not a developer.
But it's off of CryEngine, right? Because that was what the lawsuit was about back in the day too. So
because CIG is sharing some of their tech with Amazon, right, with the Lumberyard engine. So I thought those two are like hand in hand, right?
They are.
Yeah. Lumberyard is Lumberyard is CryEngine, but it's been customized to suit the needs of not only just Star Citizen, but for Amazon and their game studios as a whole. Like, we can have a whole show talk about how they're gonna make the most of it.
Oh yeah, don't let me get my tinfoil hat in, because I think
they're not gonna do that.
I think they gave them a deal on AWS servers.
They did.
I think that's why they're getting cheap server costs, because they're helping.
It's a business deal. It's a business deal, right? It makes everybody wins with that, right? All right,
they had a similar deal with Intel, a similar deal with AMD. I mean, most of that is promotion now, but Amazon was hand in hand. Yeah.
Okay, last thing we want to show you guys. We're going to wrap it up. I know we're over time here, God. We're almost 30 minutes over time. We're going to finish this last thing. This is just a real quick example of talking about. I want to get the panel's feelings about this. This has to do with, many of you guys remember when we were in the Gib Carrick mode. For those of you who remember that, the Carrick was one of those ships that was highly anticipated by the community for many, many years. It became a meme and it just went crazy. And then, the Carrick, when it came out, well, let's not even talk about it when it was in concept, right? People were in love with this. This is the ship that everybody said was going to be their enterprise. It was going to be their ship that they traveled everywhere in.
Firefly.
It was their Firefly, right? I mean, it was a sleek design and everything. And people were so excited. And
so skinny.
If you remember, even this ship, it was gorgeous inside. It had a different type of layout inside of it. It had a little spiral turning staircase in there and double decks and all this cool stuff and everything. But then it came out. And when it came out looking like that. And there were a lot of people who were like, yuck. They didn't like it. They felt that it had gained a few pounds. The interior was definitely different. Now it was somewhat similar, but different, scaled back a little bit. Let me go to fastcart first. I'm going to go in reverse order this time. And you remember some of the things that was going on with the Carrick, right? Back when this happened, do you remember it? Because they had that really cool commercial of the guy climbing the rope and all that stuff and everything. Do you remember that?
I vaguely.
Oh, if it's not a bad new merchantman, he doesn't care. That's basically what he's saying.
Yeah, I mean that's the point. It was. I mean, I know I say I don't like big ship, even though I have a measurement endeavor. But you know, this was I consider this a big ship.
Okay.
But I didn't like the design of the character also. So yeah, I wasn't really that into the character. But
okay.
I remember. Yeah, I do remember the controversy that when it came out, people were less than enthusiastic about that.
Yeah.
To put it diplomatically.
Now, and the reason why we're bringing this ship up is because we're talking about, you know, dreams versus reality. And this was the dream ship. And then this was the reality ship. Gio, you got any feelings about those two when you look at them? Are you from the position of they both look great, or I prefer one over the other, or as long as they both do what they're supposed to do? Where do you stand between those two designs?
And me personally, I like them thick, but the only thing that's missing at me, I just wish they would left the antennas on there.
No, they are actually on there. They're just not operating because those work for the wormhole. Yeah, they work for the wormhole, but they are on that ship.
So when the wormhole goes up, the antennas go up?
That's what they're for. That's what they're for. They're for when you're going through the wormhole. Those are not radio antennas. Those are antennas for when you're going to go through a wormhole, if I'm not mistaken.
So I wonder why they were up on the...
If you watch the trailer, when they get ready to go into a jump, you'll see them actually on this ship. You'll actually see them come out ahead of time.
Oh, okay.
And they are.
I think they just weren't retractable in the original version. They
Exactly.
just were out all the time.
Oh, so now they're retractable.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, hey, if the antenna's still there, I'm still cool with it. Like I said, I like them thick, so that's cool with me. We could carry more stuff. I think it was more of a plus if you ask me.
Okay.
Because that looked like the ship that they're showing in that in the concept looks like you could do you have less cargo and stuff in there.
Okay.
But I'm not mad to thick carry. They both look good.
Okay.
It's concept for a reason. So when you buy a ship, just make sure things can change and probably will change, which is how I looked at all my ships I ever bought. Like, hey, it could possibly be a slight change up. So when I bought this ship, I knew it might change, and it did, and I'm still happy with it. I want that antenna in the front though too. I don't see the antenna in the front.
Yeah,
a little sharp one.
Yeah, that one's not there. You're right.
And we're waiting for the armor windows.
Yep, and that is coming. They're going to do that. You've flown this ship before, and you know when it comes to design, design and everything. I know this is one of the ones that you like. How do you feel about the difference in design? Did it affect you, or were you like, as long as it was functional, did what it needed to do? Did it grow on you, or did you like it?
I mean, so this signals. I think they're doing a much better job of this now in concepting ships. They draw it out, and the artists are taking into consideration like actual real volume of the
metrics, all that stuff. Yep.
But into there, when they drew the Carrick out, much like how when they drew out the original BMM, right? They just put something on paper that they thought was cool, and then they released it to the public, like say, hey, what do y'all think? Y'all like this? We're gonna make this.
Right.
But it wasn't practical when it started going through the box phase of development. You know, it's just like, hey, all this stuff. That right there is a freaking Redeemer.
Yeah.
It's bigger. It's bigger.
No, I know what he's saying. He's just talking about the design language of it. Yeah, I get what he's saying.
It's slightly bigger than a Redeemer, right? And the Redeemer ain't very big. I mean, it's like a Redeemer XL, and like you would be missing so much stuff. I mean, think about all the stuff that the Carrick has. It has a hangar, it has multi-crew sleeping area, it has drones, it's got the storage, garage, medical facilities, turrets. It's got all
that was the problem. That was actually cartography. Yeah, CIG actually said that if they had built that ship out based on this design, it also would have grown to a huge, crazy size.
Right.
They actually pulled the length of the ship back in for the design. And to your point, Gomab, those early renderings from earlier in the day were just basically artist renderings, like you said. Metrics and things were not taken into consideration. Now, when CIG does it, they do it in real time in the computer 3D. They know exactly what hallways should be, the size, length, all that good stuff. But back then, it was an artist rendering back then. So that's a good point.
I mean, even looking at, like, I don't think when they said it could hold all that stuff in its original picture, there's no way I don't think it would have
Yeah.
held everything it was supposed to. Look how skinny that is.
Yeah, it's just again,
And it
it's
doesn't
an
look like
artist-
it could go far either.
Yeah, again, it's an
Look at
artist
look at the
rendering.
landing gear. Look how trash those landing gear are.
Baby.
You land on Calliope, man, in a strong wind of Scarecrow.
Yeah, she's skimpy.
Yeah, the new one is beefy. Paul, what are your thoughts about the design character change? And talk maybe a little about what we should expect, because every time we do a donation or back a ship, there is that little box we click on that says things can change.
Yeah, the thing to remember is that around this time period, CIG started to get real. To talk about expectations versus reality, they started actually to realize what a ship actually needed. And since this release, I think we really haven't had many ships that have changed. Like BMM is probably the last ship that's going to have changed as dramatically as it has since it's originally released.
Right.
Yeah, the Endeavor too. The Endeavor's
I was gonna say,
and to a degree, and to a degree, the Ryan probably will, because it's the same. But it was already
changed. They changed it already. Yeah,
huge.
It's huge.
But like, the reality is that CIG around this time realized that if they wanted players and NPCs to be able to use these ships, they needed to make the hallways bigger. They needed to make everything completely different metrics, and that's what caused the character to change to what it is today, because it had to be thicker. It had to be the extra thick in order for in order for you to get the corridors and you can walk around in it and stuff like that. So
yeah, another example of that. In fact, they mentioned that when they started working on the modularity and the remake for the Retaliator. That was one of the things they said was that they had to make the hallways wider so that two people could pass with the NPCs, because right now it's just designed for one person to walk through it. So those are the metrics that we're talking about, the things that now they know that they have to do. And so we don't get those issues anymore. But to Gomab's point, before, this was just an artist rendering in the earlier days, that's all it was.
I'm going to try to be real quick because you mentioned BMM. I remember the reconcept, I think it was 2017. They had the white BMM sitting on a platform, and they had people surrounding it. But people were so tiny. People were going on Reddit trying to scale, trying to get the scale of the new BMM concept from the side of the people. And they were saying, "Oh, this is going to be interesting. It's going to be great."
Yeah,
I'm a vision versus reality. So
no, you're absolutely right. And in fact, most people don't know the size of the BMM when it was first initially mentioned. It was not the ship that it is now, not by any means. That's the reason why it had a $250 price tag. It was nowhere near a capital. It was a blockade runner. And it was a little bit smaller than a Connie, somewhere between a Connie and a Freelancer was the original
100
size.
or something, or 90, something
you
like that.
Remember, Paul, what the size of the BMM was supposed to be originally? I keep feeling like it was between.
I want to say it was Constellation. It was like Constellation or slightly bigger.
That was it.
I can't remember exactly.
It was
Captain Joe said 90.
90,
Yeah, 90.
the original 90. Yeah, it wasn't that big. So that's smaller than a Starfarer's 100. So that was the size of the ship. So things do change. That's what we want you guys to know. We're going to wrap it up because we are over by 36 minutes. And
we do have a couple of questions. But
I was going to say, we do have a couple of questions that we want to address. The fastcart, why don't you go ahead and read those, please?
Okay, let me find them because they got a whole bunch of joke bands to go to. So we'll go through. So give me a moment. Scrolling down some more. Okay, we got one from Symphony Prime. Considering the scale of the game, are you guys concerned that the game will feel too hollow? Ooh, that's a good question. Considering the scale of the game, do you think it'll feel too hollow? I'll start with Gio for that one.
I don't think it would probably feel too hollow. It feels like they got the base of the game, correct. It's just really at this point adding like some of the content that keep us entertained. Like I want better NPCs, life on some of these planets, and I think if they fill some of that out, there's a lot of gameplay to be had. I think that's the main thing that we're missing, because a lot of the universe right now feels kind of dead because we're lacking that. I was playing a couple games that had that stuff, it just wasn't implemented well, and I think when CIG finally does implement that stuff, I think it'll be put in there pretty well.
Okay. Gomab, what about you?
I think So a lot of space games have like unlimited systems, crazy number of systems, right? They're very wide, but they're not very deep. I think CIG is doing it a little bit opposite right now. They're trying to build in depth, right, with the multiple career paths, the different factions, the lore, all of that. They're trying to build in depth, right? Think of it like a jar of peanut butter that then they could spread across the 100 systems that they plan on releasing.
Now I'm hungry.
Right. Yep. That's a joke. You got a band going right now.
It's a statement of fact. I can't make a statement of fact.
No, but so I don't think it's going to be hollow because there's going to be so much to do that you can do solo and on a multi-crew ship. The problem is if none of that interests you, then yes, it'll be hollow. You're like, oh, I'm bored. I don't want to do this. Well, then set the project for you. Then I'm sure there's something else that you can do, or you could just fly around your ship. But yes, I don't think it's going to be hollow.
Paul?
There's a couple things that we're missing currently. Number one is the new NPC system that they've been developing. They showed off a little bit of that. Here's a little hint for those of you who haven't been following the monthly reports as much, even Squadron 42 monthly reports. The system that they're developing for Squadron 42, which includes like these tags they can attach to NPCs that makes them dynamic, it also manages for their social systems. So like if you walk into a station, you pull out a gun, you start shooting it into the sky, some NPCs will run, others will cower, others will approach you and try to take you down based off of their social tags. And that applies to combat, it applies to social interactions, it applies to ship interactions and ship combat now. So they each have these little different dynamic stuff, and that'll flesh it out a lot more. And as the system migrates into Star Citizen, we're going to see a lot more of that play out. So it'll feel less empty right now, as it does right now, because NPCs will fill a lot of those empty spaces. But the backend sucks, so they can't quite do that yet. And the other thing is the dynamic mission system connected to Quantum. Quantum's in the game, it's just a matter of expanding it more. And the systems, the missions are all becoming modular so that they can become part of that dynamic mission systems and be generated based off of the probability volume. So, I don't think there's a risk of it being hollow in the future. I think it's hollow right now, but it won't be as hollow in the future.
Yeah. FC, you said, yeah, is that what you're thinking? Same thing? Okay.
Yeah, that last part might feel hollow now, but I think it'll be filled in the future. And it also depends on what you want to do. If you're like me, looking for the economics and stuff like that, or science and manufacturing, it'll feel hollow right now, but hopefully that'll be filled in the future.
I know for me, I'm going to say this real quick. You guys know I'm a big Star Wars Galaxies fan. If you ever get a chance to watch the GDC video on Star Wars Galaxies, check it out. There's something interesting about the Star Wars game, and it was the fact that when they developed the game, it wasn't ready when they launched it. The devs actually went to Sony and told them, we need a year. And Sony told them, you got 1 month. And they launched the game anyway. That's what happens with publishers, right? So they launch it. Anyway, the game didn't have any of the mission stuff and stuff that they really wanted to put into the game. But the reason why Star Wars Galaxies took off, besides it being a great franchise culturally, was also the fact that the players embraced the world and they immediately went in and created their own play, their own gaming. With what little was there, they were building cities, towns, they were doing battles with each other, all types of stuff. And it blew the devs away because nobody expected that to be the outcome, because everybody was thinking that if there weren't any missions in the game, that the game was not going to be successful. And I'm saying that because I believe that, I hope that is what Star Citizen will be. It will be successful not just because of the missions that CIG puts into your Mobi-Glass or the trade that you get from a terminal, but because the gamers and the players make the universe interesting. If they give us the tools, all the things that we need to be able to play the game, then its life expectancy will be tremendously based on how much we are willing to make that world a curious and exciting place to be in. Because they can put in tons of stuff, but if we aren't interested, or if we don't decide to play together, as Paul mentioned earlier, within the context of, the MMO context, then the game will die over time. But I'm just hoping that gamers Y'all fire up y'all imaginations. Let's go into that world and do stuff. There are plenty of us, GomabATL, other people. We go in the game all the time and play. And then I hear other people saying there's nothing to do in the game. And I go in that game 3-4 times a week and spend a couple hours, 2-3 hours. And this is after being in here since 2013, and I can still do it. And don't get me wrong, I get it. Some people are looking for certain things to do. I get it. If you want to say, hey, I want to get into flying my Orion or this, and it's not in the game and I can't do it. I understand that. But I believe that we can find things to do in the game as it's being developed. And let's hit that second question. Do you all feel that Star Citizen will be so complicated that it will deter new users from backing or buying Star Citizen? Fastcart, I'll go to you on that one first.
I feel it'll be so complicated. It depends on how much research someone does. If someone is looking for a quick and simple game that they can hop in and out and do the research and say, okay, this game may not be for me because it may take a half hour just to get started and start a mission and stuff like that. But if if people do their research and say, oh, okay, I'm looking for a more in-depth game, then you probably bring in more people. So I guess it kind of depends. It deters some, both actually. It deters some people and bringing some people, more people, some other people. If you ask me if it'll deter more than bring in, I don't know. I think this will be a niche game and probably turn off more people than bring in. That's my guess.
Mad Style, I see you. No fishing, no game. I hear you. Okay. Gio. Do you feel the game will be too complicated that some new players may not want to, play the game once it's out?
I think they're going to try to find that balance because you don't want something too hardcore, but then you don't want something too arcadey.
Mm-hmm.
Some people want that like in between because you look at some of the arcade art, like super hardcore, like something like Scum. Scum, you have to find your temperature and how much you eat and how much like it's a lot of stuff in the game. It's very very niche.
It's not for everybody.
It's definitely not for everybody. There's a couple other games I could name off, but you don't want to get where it's super complicated. Even with like the eating mechanics, like they added in on here, like you don't want to have to feed yourself every damn 10 minutes. Like if it's every couple hours, it's not that bad. And then maybe there's a profession for like eating. That'd be cool. I mean, a cook. Cooking. You be a cook on the ship and make some snacks that'll last long if you know what you're doing. But I think they're going to find that in between ground for us.
Okay.
You don't want to go too far armor, but then you don't want to go too far Call of Duty. You kind of want to meet the middle with this type of game. That's what I'm hoping for.
Okay. Gomab.
One, I don't think they should follow the same tropes as other MMORPGs, right? My goal, my hope for this project is that it's not all about an end game situation, right? So, and if it's not, what that does is that opens up the ability for solo new players to come in and experience the game that they're, able to do. Box missions, low level bounty hunting, investigations, things like that aren't very complex. But on the other flip side, I do want there to be high complexity, high difficulty, high risk, high reward activities that are available for the top tier players that put in the time and effort to do that. So hopefully they'll have a wide range, right? So that we don't end up in a situation where we're so very niche. I would love to see Star Citizen be damn near a ubiquitous, space where all sorts of gamers can come. Hell, I mean, even from mobile platforms, which by the time it comes out, your phone will have a 4090 in it. So.
Okay. All right. Paul, we'll let you close this out with this one.
I don't think it's going to be too complicated. I definitely think there's going to be, at the end of the day, Star Citizen will have its audience. I think it'll be more broad than most people realize, but I don't think it will be so broad that anyone can come. It's going to be a light sim. It's going to have elements of sim, but it's where elements of sim comes in that are too complicated and overcomplicated. They'll throw it out for arcade stuff. And it's going to be a situation, I think, that's going to make a lot of folks not very happy. especially those folks who are like really into like a good example of this is master modes. Look at the discussion on Spectrum on master modes, and I will show you a walls smeared with feces that is, for something that is changing how people fly and fight in Star Citizen, and it is not even out yet. It is not even, no one has actually played it that can actually talk about it, and yet people still have opinions on it. I saw one long treatise where someone said master modes are garbage. You should use my idea, and I'm like, okay, Mr. Generic name on Spectrum, who I've never heard of before. Let's use your idea over the idea of, you know, several developers who've been touching code on Star Citizen for, you know, several years now. I don't think it's a good plan there, my buddy. But that's an example of like there will almost certainly be people who are unhappy with how it's going to be. But I don't think the people who are going to be unhappy about it will say it's too complex. I think the people who are going to be happy are saying it's not complex enough. There's not enough nuance for them.
Well, people who are mad at master modes are the ones who want to solo a damn Idris. Let's get that pretty much straight.
But Paul, how are you going to come on Soul Citizen and bring up master modes, man? We talked about this last night.
Oh God! Oh, why didn't y'all joke ban him faster than that? Jeez, oh Pete.
Thanks, Master. Thanks, fastcart.
Yeah,
thanks,
I know. Do you feel that Star Citizen will be so complicated? I think that Star Citizen will have a learning curve like Eve. Maybe not to the degree where we're breaking out spreadsheets, but I think that because there are so many careers and each career will have a good amount of depth to it, that it'll be challenging. And I think that if people find something that they want to do, they'll be willing to dig into it. I think it's just going to be a change because so many games out there don't have that depth into careers. So there will be some people who will be hungry for it. They'll be excited for it because they've been looking for games like that. And then there may be some people that it's a little too much, but I think CIG will provide, just like you can go into your cockpit and just push R, or you can go into your cockpit and push UIOP, whichever one. I think CIG is going to provide an avenue for the person who wants to be able to just get in and do, and then also for that person who wants to go in full bore and go with depth. So that's my 2 cents on that. Okay. All righty. Well, we have finally made it to the end of today's show. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Let's talk about what we've got coming up, and we're going to let Paul talk a little bit about what he has coming up as well. So Fastcart, why don't you go ahead and lead us in here?
Yeah, I just want to say that I think that this episode is a lot better than the original Electric Boogaloo. But on Thursday, we have a show called Soul Talk. That's on Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 1 a.m. UTC, where we talk about what's going on in the Star Citizen community that week. We cover This Week in Star Citizen, SCL, ISC. But that's when you all in the community get to come in and talk, have a more roundtable discussion in Discord. So that is Soul Talk Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern.
Mm-hmm. And on Saturdays, we have Soul Voices. That's at 3 p.m. Eastern time. That's our one-on-one conversation where we talk about Spectrum, Reddit, and things in the gaming industry where you get to come in and share your thoughts. We love to hear from the community on that. And that's Saturdays at 3 p.m. Eastern time. And then next Sunday, we are doing a show called Space Tycoon. Fastcart is going to be one of the people here leading on this one. Space Tycoon, those of you who are about that money, Gomab, another one, about that cheddar. If you are out there to make moolah, we're going to be able to talk about how people are making money in the game now and what are some things that you're anticipating later on into how you're going to grow your wealth and your riches and fame in the Star Citizen universe as this game continues to develop. And that'll be next Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Last but not least, let's talk to Paul. Paul, do you want to tell people where they can find you, reiterate your show that's coming up?
Sure. A couple things. First off, if you enjoy Star Citizen content and other space game content and sci-fi content, you can always catch me at youtube.com/TheAstroPub live or twitch.tv/TheAstroPub, where I do game content. I do a lot of Star Citizen content. I do a weekly show called The Office Hours, where I just sit down and kind of talk. It's an AMA. We look at it's kind of like Soul Talk, where we do the same thing. We're just kind of talking and look at the reviews and stuff like that. And we're usually a little earlier than that, and then usually if Soul Talk's going, we usually can roll into Soul Talk. And then also Captain's Table, which we had both Griff and fastcart on. It's on Saturdays. Part of Podsat Saturdays. It's Soul Voices, then at Captain Stable, and then the
Relay
Relay
Station.
And if you really like, if you want to see the Christmas in July, come see the 2016 holiday live stream where you can crack open your beers and or other alcoholic beverages or non-alcoholic beverages and cringe along to the worst live stream that CIG has ever done. I don't know. I might try to raise some money for charity for that, or maybe just for fun, just to see this. It's a big event. So that way, when CIG members pop on and say, "Hey, what's this then?" And I go, hey, I'm raising money for charity. Please don't give me the season test. Please don't give me the money off their cringe.
They can't say anything. That's a good idea. I love it.
Capitalizing on your cringe.
I love it.
There you go.
I love it.
But and of course, if you want to know more about the lore of Star Citizen and other universes, I did actually just do a primer on Starfield for lore. You can catch me at youtube.com/theastrohistorian. I've done a long running series called The Complete History of the Star Citizen Universe, which is going to be updated this month to next month, probably early next month, where I've been going a comprehensive study from the very beginning of the lore of Star Citizen, like where the lore starts, which is in 2050. And then 2024, I think, or no, it's 2050 or 2030, something like that. And then goes all the way up to 2952, where we are today. I've currently done the first 300, 400 years of lore. And from now on, it's going to get incredibly dense because, the next episode is going to be like 40 years. And there's going to be an entire episode dedicated to the Varan War and so on and so forth. So if you want to know absolutely everything I can possibly find and put into a timeline for the Star Citizen lore, watch that series. It's a fantastic one to check out if you're very interested in the deep recesses of Star Citizen's history. So,
Paul, please change it to Cringemas in July.
Yes, I'll call it Cringemas
in July. I love that. I love it. Listen, and again, guys, we do want to encourage you guys. A lot of times we don't have time to do all the reading about this game in the sense of the lore, or you're just not interested in, you get those newsletters. Listen, turn on Paul's stuff, play it when you're riding, when you're working out, whatever the case may be. Really, really great information. Yeah, it's great stuff that you can just listen to and absorb this stuff because it is going to be vital to you later when you go into the persistent universe. Mark our words for it. You're going to be so thankful that you learned all these little weird intricacies about the lore of Star Citizen. So be sure to check them out. And don't forget to check them out on Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. Special thanks to my good friends, GomabATL, Geo Get Money, aka Sub-Geo, who's on his, what's this, your second drink or your third drink there? You've been drinking them pretty smooth tonight.
I got 3 or 4 cans over here.
Yeah, you've been smooth tonight. You've been taking them in at a nice even pace tonight. And then of course,
Christmas stuff. I didn't want to go too off the rail.
You did okay. And also fastcart. Thank you guys. Dig That. We saw you out there. We love you, man. It's good seeing you. We want to see some more videos from you. You guys check out Dig That 32 on YouTube as well. Special thanks to everybody here. Thank you guys for the contributions, the subs, the follows, everything you guys did tonight. We really appreciate you guys. We are going to be setting ourselves up to do a raid with Maiden Ariana. So when you get over to see Maiden Ariana, make sure that you let her know that you came from the Soul Citizens. Give her a shout.
I'm really happy that we did this collab with AstroPub. That was great.
Thank you, was. Yesterday and today was a great time. Thank you, Paul. It was last minute, but it worked. Don't forget to check out our merch. I finally got my merch, guys. I bought my mug. I got my mug with my little phrase on it and everything. So it came the other day. I didn't have one of my own mugs. It's kind of crazy. Anyway, we'll see you guys real soon. Take care of yourself. Stay safe. And as always, peace, love, and soul. We'll see you guys later. Peace out.
Ow.